Chapter 355. Lin Yuan knew that Lu Jie was not a creation master, so it was impossible for him to fully know the function of this source-type cocoon of evolution. However, as a spirit chi professional, when he obtained a source-type item, he could sense whether he could use it or not. Lin Yuan watched as Lu Jie looked up at him with eyes full of surprise. His hand holding the source-type cocoon of evolution was still trembling slightly with great joy. Lin Yuan explained the use of the source-type cocoon of evolution. At this time, Lu Jie heard the youth in front of him say with a bright smile, "Big brother Lu, this source-type cocoon of evolution is not for you to contract, but for the insect queen to parasitize. When the time comes, as long as the insect queen provides nutrients for the cocoon of evolution to evolve and improve its quality, the insect queen's skills will be strengthened every time the cocoon of evolution advances a grade." Lu Jie already knew that he could not contract phase or source-type items after contracting the insect queen. However, when he got the source-type item, the cocoon of evolution, he unexpectedly found that he could contract it. This was equivalent to giving Lu Jie another path to take, regardless of whether the source-type item in his hand was suitable for him. However, Lu Jie's situation didn't give him the right to say that he would rather have nothing than have something shoddy. But when she heard the words of this sunny and smiling young man, she felt a chill run down her spine. Lu Jie felt as if a resplendent firework had exploded in his mind, creating the most beautiful floating life scroll. There was no one in this world who understood himself and the insect queen better than Lu Jie. Therefore, Lu Jie knew very well what Lin Yuan had said, and what the cocoon of evolution in his hand meant. This did not only mean that the insect queen could become stronger, but it also meant that he could continue down the path he had chosen. Suddenly, tears welled up in the corner of Lu Jie's eyes. A drop of hot tears flowed down from the tip of his nose, as if it had never appeared before. During the 3 years of silence and despair, Lu Jie did not shed a single tear. If there was anything in this world that could make him cry, it would be tears of joy. Lu Jie's eyes were filled with gratitude, but he didn't say any words of thanks like before. In the first desperate situation, it was this young man who lit up the light and saved the endangered insect queen, as well as himself. During the second opportunity to enhance the Fae, this youth had lit up the torch, giving him a chance that he wouldn't have a second chance if he missed it once. The third time was when he denied himself for the first time, trying to find a way out of the path that he had denied himself before. This young man was like a sun, illuminating the path that she couldn't cross, allowing her to firmly walk down the path that she had chosen. He had given her a new lease of life twice. Any kind of gratitude would seem hypocritical. Therefore, Lu Jie did not say any words of gratitude. It was faith in the first place, and he had already intended to repay it with his life. There was no need for him to thank him. In Lu Jie's opinion, no matter how strong he became in the future, it was all for the sake of protecting the young man in front of him. Lin Yuan was laughing, and so was Lu Jie. However, Lin Yuan was smiling because the source-type cocoon of evolution had helped him untie the knot in his heart and made him firm on the path he wanted to take. Lu Jie was smiling because his smile contained his silent gratitude and faith. After playing with Lu Jie for a while, he planned to head to the celestial stairway to fight. According to Lu Jie, the stairway's 2v2 duels would happen within this month. Lin Yuan was only a celestial 1-star now. Therefore, if he wanted to have a 2v2 duel on the Star Web celestial stairway, he would form a 2-man team with Lu Jie to fight such a small 2-man team competition. In this month, Lin Yuan would have to at least reach celestial 1 stars to celestial 12 stars. Now that he was fighting on the celestial stairway, Lin Yuan did not dare to guarantee that he could win all the battles. After all, there were many experts on the celestial stairway. What if he encountered a crazy big shot who stuck on the celestial stairway to do a live broadcast for the sake of the live broadcast effect? Even if Lin Yuan had the gold /fantasy eye source sand as a trump card, he did not dare to guarantee that he could win all the battles. It was very likely that he would fail at some point, but the probability of that was very small. However, as long as Lin Yuan won 11 more matches than he lost in the next celestial stairway duels, it would be fine. Lin Yuan used Black's identity to log on to Star Web this time. He was ready to go to the Celestial Stairway, to start the Celestial Stairway duels. However, Lin Yuan did not know that he had used his Creation Master identity to open a Star Web private territory on Star Web. Last night, he had become the laughing stock of the other factions that had opened their faction territories on Star Web. In fact, the veteran factions that had opened their faction territories on Star Web were fine. The veteran forces had deep foundations, and these veteran forces with rich foundations mostly looked down on the rising forces with a little bit of foundation. On the other hand, the rising factions with a little foundation mostly despised those rising factions without much foundation. Such a chain of contempt spread under the sense of superiority directly made those rising factions, without much foundation, always be at the bottom of the Star Web's chain of contempt. But now, they suddenly found that a faction had just established a territory on Star Web. Many of these rising factions without much foundation had the idea of paying a visit. For the rising factions, it did not matter whether the private faction that had newly opened a territory on Star Web was powerful or rich in foundation. There was no harm in paying a visit. If the private faction that had newly opened a territory on Star Web was powerful, then it would be considered as building a good impression. If the private faction that had newly opened a territory on Star Web was weak, then they could always huddle together for warmth. At that time, Lin Yuan had not closed the private faction's external access rights. This caused these rising factions without much foundation to see that Lin Yuan's faction maintained its appearance when it had just opened a private territory. These rising factions without much foundation seemed to have discovered a new continent and finally found a target that they could despise. The establishment of a private faction's territory on Star Web was a kind of diplomatic display of one's faction's foundation with other factions. Therefore, among these rising factions without much foundation, Lin Yuan's private faction, that had just opened a territory on Star Web, had already been imperceptibly used as a talking point for these rising factions to show their sense of superiority. Therefore, among these rising factions without much foundation, Lin Yuan's private faction, that had just opened a territory on Star Web, had already become a talking point for these rising factions to show their sense of superiority. However, Lin Yuan's newly opened private faction was not much in the eyes of those rising factions with a foundation. After all, if these rising factions with a foundation wanted to find a sense of superiority, they could completely find it in those rising factions without foundation. It was like a person could find a sense of superiority in those who were slightly inferior to them. However, this sense of superiority was already very faint in those who were too far apart from them. After all, they were a few levels apart. The late first update, end of this chapter. Chapter 356. This was because the sense of superiority often only existed between people of similar levels. If the level difference was too great, this sense of superiority would turn into a sense of distance. They weren't on the same level, so the energy and resources they possessed were worlds apart. This was also the reason why those rising forces, without any foundation, were unable to gain the recognition of the veteran forces. He couldn't even be bothered to look down on them. It could be said that he had not done anything after setting up his faction territory on Star Web. However, he did not use the second right after opening his private territory. This made Lin Yuan's faction a bumpkin in the eyes of those rising factions without any foundation. However, this also gave his faction a lot of attention. However, these gazes were filled with contempt and curiosity. However, these rising forces that did not have any foundation did not know this. That was a private force that they regarded as country bumpkins. They could not enter the interior of the private property. There was a pot of bronze/legend oath lily of the valley that they wouldn't even dare to dream of. He did not know that he had used his identity as a creation master to set up a private faction territory on Star Web and was regarded as a country bumpkin. However, even if Lin Yuan knew, he would probably only feel a little amused. When Lin Yuan logged into the Star Web as Black, he saw Tian Ningning's message. Tian Ningning. Black, I heard that the Star Web Celestial Stairway is going to add a new Celestial Stairway dual mode, but I'm not sure what it is yet. When Lin Yuan saw Tian Ningming's message, he couldn't help but raise his brows. According to Lu Jie, he had just heard about the new 2v2 duel on the Star Web Celestial Stairway from the Radiance Sacred Hall. Although this was not confidential information, it had only been a few hours since Lu Jie learned about it. At this time, Tian Ningming had already heard the news, even though the information she knew was not complete. However, with Tian Ningming's identity as a Star Web columnist, it was indeed very convenient for her to obtain some of the latest news. Based on the timing, Tian Ningming must have told him as soon as she heard the news. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh. It was really convenient to have an exclusive reporter on Star Web. Ever since Tian Ningming became Lin Yuan's exclusive reporter, he only needed to leave everything on Star Web to Tian Ningming to handle. When Lin Yuan had just ascended the Celestial Stairway, his combat video had been recorded in the Star Web video library. Tian Ningming was the one who helped Lin Yuan handle the various matters regarding the profits from the battle recordings. This saved Lin Yuan a lot of trouble. Lin Yuan replied to Tian Ningming, "Black, I know. I'm going to fight in the Celestial Stairway duel. Do you want a first-person view?" When Tian Ningming saw Lin Yuan's message, she shook her ponytail in a daze. Tian Ningming didn't know whether Black knew what she had just said when he said new. He finally knew what the new dual mode on the Stairway to Heaven was. In fact, it wasn't just Tian Ningming. Many people on Star Web were also guessing Black's identity. After all, if He Ruo was just an ordinary spirit chi professional, how could she be equipped with so many high-quality phase? Moreover, Black's contracted phase had source-type items. A high-quality source-type item was different from a high-quality phase. High-quality phase could be purchased and contracted, but high-quality source-type lifeforms were within the capabilities of Class 4 creation masters. As such, Black's identity had become the husband of many young girls on Star Web. When Lin Yuan appeared as Black, he wore Genius's tool transformation mask. However, Lin Yuan's misunderstood aloofness attracted the attention of many fans. However, since Black's identity had been confirmed to be a youth, it also made Lin Yuan's fans the most among his fans. Most of these mom fans were the male moms, who were crazily cheering for Lin Yuan. Tian Ningming might be puzzled, but she wouldn't ask Lin Yuan about this kind of personal question about his identity, because Tian Ningming knew what to say and what not to say. As Black's exclusive reporter, Tian Ningming had always done her job well and tried her best to maintain Black's image and interests. According to Lin Yuan's request, she would report all the news about Black truthfully. However, when Tian Ningming saw that Black was going to fight in the Celestial Stairway duel and asked if she wanted a first-person view, Tian Ningming was immediately overjoyed and replied without hesitation, "Yes, I want it. I really want it." Lin Yuan looked at Tian Ningming's message with some doubt. "There is only one first-person view. I can't give you 3. Lin Yuan immediately chose to match his opponent on the Celestial Stairway. After he was matched with an opponent, he shared the first-person view with Tian Ningming. If Black was the most popular on Star Web, it would undoubtedly be Black's official fan club and the official forum. However, the third most popular place on Star Web was definitely the Celestial Stairway's Achievement Altar. As early as 20 days ago, when the Star Web officials had set up Black's virtual image on the Celestial Stairway's Achievement Altar, it had immediately caused the Celestial Stairway to explode. Even the experts on the Celestial Stairway's hall, which could only be entered by those above Celestial Stairway's 50 stars, had their eyes on Black. In order to obtain an exclusive achievement on the Celestial Stairway, one had to set up a virtual image on the Celestial Stairway's Achievement Altar. It would be admired by all the people on the Celestial Stairway. This was not something that could be done casually. In the past 100 years on Star Web, there were only close to 200 virtual images on the Celestial Stairway's Achievement Altar, including Black's identity. It did not mean that one had to be very strong to obtain an exclusive achievement and set up a virtual image on the Celestial Stairway's Achievement Altar. However, any Spirit Chi professional who could set up a virtual image on the Celestial Stairway's achievement altar must have something that ordinary people could not reach. The Celestial Stairway's hall, which could only be entered by those above Celestial Stairway's achievement altar, was mostly filled with experts of the older generation. These experts of the older generation usually did not pay attention to some gossip on Star Web. They would not even go to the forum or join the fan club. These experts of the older generation in the Celestial Stairway's hall were absolute bigwigs in reality. Most of the factions were at the pinnacle of king class. Therefore, even though Lin Yuan had protected Millstone Town under the millstone, these experts in the Celestial Stairway's hall had only heard of him. However, when Black's virtual image appeared on the Celestial Stairway's achievement altar, Lin Yuan was considered to have walked into the line of sight of these Celestial Stairway's hall experts. Second update, ask for everyone's opinion. Do you think it's better to write in detail, every day and warm? It's better to quickly push through the plot and push through the main storyline. Ask for everyone's opinion. Button has been reversing the car for the new year and is already exhausted, but I strive to make sure to do 3 updates every day. Love you, Mua. End of this chapter. Chapter 357. The experts in the Celestial Stairway Hall could not help but click their tongues in wonder at Lin Yuan's winning streak. It had to be known that it wasn't hard to find experts on the Star Web. There were plenty of experts on Star Web, but apart from Lin Yuan, there had never been anyone who could climb the Celestial Stairway without being defeated. In fact, it was not a good choice for him to participate in the Celestial Stairway duels now. Chimey was still sleeping on the Phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. He could not rashly summon Chimey, wake it up and let it fight. This would undoubtedly affect the purification and improvement of Enin's bloodline. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance of affecting Chimey's bloodline purification and quality improvement, he would not do it. The only phase that could attack were Chimey, the Source Sand, Red Thorn, and the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee. Therefore, during the Celestial Stairway duels, he could only choose the combination of Red Thorn and the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee, or the Source Sand to attack. Lin Yuan already had the Source Sand, but he had not used it much during the Celestial Stairway duels. During the battle with Poison Beauty, Lin Yuan had used the Source Sand to restrain her Toad Fae in the dark. No one noticed at all. He wanted to use the Gold Eye/Fantasy Eye Source Sand as his trump card, but now that he wanted to reach Celestial Stairway 12 stars, the Source Sand would not be able to be hidden. Moreover, he had already used the Source Sand in the battle against the controlled Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rifts Sea of Demons. During that battle, the Source Sand's Web of Life had saved countless Spirit Chi professionals' lives. Therefore, these adventurers already knew that Lin Yuan had contracted a fae that could manipulate gravel. Back then, this matter had spread from the mouths of those adventurers, and it was considered quite a big news in the Radiance Federation. At the same time, in Black's forum and fan group, there were people enthusiastically discussing what kind of fae was this sand manipulation fae. However, no one was able to figure out the reason for the endless debate. However, according to those adventurers who had come out from the controlled Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift, they had all died. This fae that could control gravel was likely a source-type item that could play a defensive or support role. In the end, these adventurers did not see what fae was controlling the gravel. On the contrary, elemental source-type items, which were very rare, were rare. However, there were many different opinions, and there was no definite answer. In his opinion, something that could be called a trump card must be something completely unknown to outsiders. Only in this way, when he took out his trump card, others would not be able to defend against it. Since others roughly knew about his source-type Source Sand, he felt that there was no harm in exposing it. In contrast, he felt that it was more suitable to choose Red Thorn, which had been promoted to Silver Eye/Fantasy Eye, as his trump card. Although Red Thorn's current level was only at Silver Eye/Fantasy Eye, however, Red Thorn's true strength was when it faced large-scale creatures in the wild. Only then would Red Thorn be able to unleash its full power. When Red Thorn unleashed its full power, it was simply equivalent to a seed remover. The weak were only fit to become fertilizer in the Sea of Flowers, and were cruelly eaten by the vines. During the Celestial Stairway duel, Red Thorn was unable to unleash its full strength due to the limitations of the arena. It could only have a restrictive effect, and this control effect also overlapped with the source sand. If they were both at the same grade, perhaps Red Thorn's control effect would be higher than the source sand's. However, the source sand was now a grade higher than Red Thorn. In the end, the source sand was still stronger in terms of control effect. Therefore, Lin Yuan planned to hide Red Thorn, which had become a fantasy breed, and had undergone a tremendous change, as his trump card. He would expose the source sand, which had been speculated about but never concluded. If he did not expose the source sand, Lin Yuan was really not sure if he could reach Celestial 12 stars. After the Star Web Celestial Stairway duels, Lin Yuan used the source sand to effortlessly defeat the 3 duelists he was matched with. He directly advanced from Celestial 1 stars to Celestial 4 stars. Each of Lin Yuan's duels was very fast. Tian Ningning did not even see clearly what had happened before the duels were over. She only saw that there seemed to be a small amber object falling to the ground from Lin Yuan's cufflinks. Within a short minute, a quicksand vortex appeared under the feet of the Spirit Chi professionals and the summon phase. Tian Ningning was already completely excited. At that moment, she was already thinking about how to write the next duel record. Tian Ningning had already determined that the reason Black could control the gravel was because it had contracted an elemental source-type life form. Black had never revealed this elemental source-type life form in the Star Web duels before. But now, it seemed that this elemental source-type life form that controlled the gravel was undoubtedly Black's strongest power. In just a few minutes of the duel, Tian Ningning realized that the quicksand, which did not seem difficult to break free from, was undoubtedly the strongest power that Black had revealed. When the Spirit Chi professionals and Faye's legs sank in, it was as if they had reached into the cruelest place. They let out a miserable howl, as though they had experienced some inhuman pain. However, this howl only echoed for a moment before Lin Yuan won the Celestial Stairway duel. This made Tian Ningning, a knowledgeable Star Web reporter, unable to clearly see the elemental life form that Lin Yuan was controlling. How exactly did they take the lives of the Spirit Chi professionals and Fays that they were matched with? However, Tian Ningning could see that it was a one-hit kill. Otherwise, Lin Yuan wouldn't have obtained victory the moment the miserable howl disappeared. He wanted to increase the number of stars on the Celestial Stairway. Therefore, he didn't hold back at all in the battle. As long as the source sand formed a quicksand vortex to control the Spirit Chi professionals and Fays, they would be able to control the Spirit Chi professionals and Fays. A chain sword made of ferromanganese would instantly emerge from the sea of sand and bind the feet of the Spirit Chi professionals and Fays. As the Spirit Chi professional and Fae sunk into the yellow sand, Lin Li's eyes widened. The manganese chain sword in the sea of sand would shrink and squeeze the feet that were entangled by the chain without any hesitation. At the same time, the heart-penetrating iron line that the source sand's exclusive skill, Sand Granule Spirit Acceptance, was equivalent to a Platinum 3/Flawless Fae. It was like an invisible devil in the sea of sand. It invisibly harvested the lives of the Spirit Chi professionals and Fays that were wrapped by the chain swords in the quicksand vortex and slowly sinking into the sea of sand. After 3 Celestial Stairway duels, Lin Yuan did not feel tired at all. It had to be said that even if Lin Yuan had reached Celestial 4 stars now, he would not be able to reach Celestial 4 stars. The Spirit Chi professionals that he was matched with did not summon any Platinum Fays either. The strongest Fae that Lin Yuan had encountered was only Gold 7/Flawless. Lin Yuan's Gold Eye/Fantasy Eye Source Sand had already reached the strength of a Platinum Fae. Therefore, Lin Yuan's current duel was equivalent to a crushing duel. After Lin Yuan won another duel, he had fought all the way to Celestial 5 stars. Just as Lin Yuan was preparing to start the next Celestial Stairway duel, the person that he was matched with made Lin Yuan raise his brows in surprise. Yesterday's third update asking for tickets, end of this chapter. Chapter 358. Lin Yuan did not expect that when he was matched with an opponent for the Celestial Stairway 5 stars this time, he would be matched with the Celestial Stairway 5-star opponent. He actually knew the person he was matched with. He was now matched with Poison Beauty, whom he had met during the Celestial Stairway promotion duels. Most of the Spirit Chi professionals on the Celestial Stairway had joined a guild club, becoming a member of the club's main team or reserve team. It was time for the tournament. The Stairway Tree powerhouses who had joined the guild club would usually spend their time on competitions and group training. However, the number of people on the stairway who did not join a guild club was definitely not small. Among so many people, Lin Yuan was actually matched with the opponent he had encountered before, Poison Beauty. It could not be said that there was no fate between them. After Lin Yuan was matched with Poison Beauty, the face behind the mask only raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't have any extra reactions. Since Lin Yuan was wearing the silver mask that Genius had transformed into, even if Lin Yuan had any expression on his face, no one would be able to see anything. After Poison Beauty was matched with an opponent, she did not immediately check her opponent's information. Instead, it was your little brother Mimi, is boundlessly savage, that was speaking to the sky. Stinky Brothers in the live streaming room. Ever since I stopped being stuck in the Celestial Stairway promotion competition and started climbing the Celestial Stairway, you Stinky Brothers haven't been sending as many gifts as before. Quick, everyone, give me a superpower pill now. Later, we'll draw a prize from those who have obtained the superpower pill. The prize is a month of silence. The viewers in Poisonous Beauty's live streaming room interacted with her through the air. Even though Poisonous Beauty couldn't see it during the stairway duel, the viewers in Poisonous Beauty's live streaming room started interacting with her. Who's the weakest? Don't say anything. I support Poison Beauty, but I'll definitely give you the super energy pill next time. Jealous me? I'll give you a big slap. Crawl for me. Low profile book boy. To be honest, as long as it's a star web streamer that I follow, their quality is generally low. 10,000 forms in the heart. I came to Poison Sister's live streaming room to eat. Blood Red Tango. Did you guys notice who's on the other side? It would be a massacre. His eyes glowed green. Fuck. Poison Beauty actually encountered black. Hey Chong Duck, mommy is cheering for you. After Poison Beauty finished speaking to the live stream room with infinite savagery, she looked at her opponent. Poison Beauty immediately cried out. Ow ow ow. Poison Beauty's cries were very strange. It contained many unknown stories. She was like a desperate girl who had been chased by a gangster for 30 meters and was about to jump into the river to commit suicide. But at that moment, he realized that the scoundrel had disappeared, and the river was filled with gold coins as far as his eyes could see. 10% fear, 20% anger, 30% excitement, and 40% impatience. Poison Beauty looked at Lin Yuan with glowing eyes and said, "That's right. Black, I didn't expect you to be so obsessed with me. Why are you in such a hurry to meet me, little sister Poison?" Lin Yuan felt that his face behind the mask was about to crack. At that moment, Lin Yuan did not know what Poison Beauty was saying. Why did it sound strange? What kind of expression does this Andy have? Why does it feel like she's going to eat me up? However, at that moment, an amber button-like object fell to the ground from Lin Yuan's sleeve. Without the slightest ripple, it turned into quicksand and drilled into the ground. Everyone's eyes were focused on the silver mask on black face, so no one noticed this scene at all. An amber button-like source-type source sand was secretly starting to create sand. Poison Beauty had just finished speaking when her live streaming room was immediately flooded with comments. Old Grandpa. Watching little sister Poison's live streaming, I actually saw her duel with Black again. What kind of immortal fate is this between little sister Poison and Black? Soft Diamond. Upstairs, don't tell me you want to be a couple. She's a ruthless person. Shadow, fuck. Auntie Poison is going to eat people. 3-year-old Zay. Poison Beauty is too aggressive. I can't take it anymore. I want to meet Poison Beauty offline. Why didn't she say such flirtatious words to me? Traversing in crevice. Upstairs, do you want to be swallowed by Auntie Poison's tainted toad? You actually dare to meet Auntie Poison. Falling into your eyes. One button to rule pity, one button to bury despair. Poison Beauty, wait to be punished by our ancestors' will. Little boy is scared. Fuck. Poison Beauty, let go of our black baby. We male mothers can't take this grievance. I'm so angry. Among all the duelists on the Celestial Stairway, the number of videos in Black's Celestial Stairway video library was undoubtedly not worthy of his huge amount of attention. It could be said that Lin Yuan's Celestial Stairway duels contained a lot of water. They were all easy victories, and could not be considered exciting at all. However, Black's popularity in the Celestial Stairway video library was very high. There was no lack of popularity brought by some teenage girl fans and mother fans who repeatedly paid to watch it. Among the many mother fans, the mother fans' ranking had even allowed him to advance from 0-star Celestial Stairway to 1-star Celestial Stairway. It was on the top 10 of the Celestial Stairway video library's popularity list. Although the top 10 of the Celestial Stairway video library's popularity list was also rotated. However, most of them were dominated by the Radiance 100 sequence members and the Celestial Stairway Hall Experts battle videos for many years. As for Black's identity, a battle video that relied on instant kills to win appeared on such a list. There was no doubt that it was very abrupt. This was because, according to common sense, only battle recordings of evenly matched opponents and narrow victories were worth watching and studying over and over again. It was not cheap to watch a Celestial Stairway Experts battle video in the Celestial Stairway video library. Celestial Stairway Experts battle videos were all watched with a fee. There was no situation of buying and repeatedly paying to watch. This also greatly proved the combat power of Black's fans. Just this alone was enough to see how popular Black's identity was on Star Web. His opponents in the duels that he had just fought were not live streamers, so they could not immediately let others pay attention to the duels. However, the Celestial Stairway video library's battle videos were immediately synchronized after the duels. This also caused the fans who usually watched Black's battle videos in the Celestial Stairway video library to discover that Black was currently frantically fighting in the Star Web duels. Moreover, he had won 4 duels in a row. Upon seeing the 4 duels that Black had just saved in the video library, the eyes of Black's fans could not help but light up. What excited the fans the most was that they could see Black's Star Web duels again. They could also see what Black had never used in the previous Star Web duels, which was the rumored Fae that could manipulate gravel. They could also read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 359. If a person had something that could attract people's attention, there was no doubt that these things were a person's strength, identity, reputation, wealth, and looks. Be it strength, identity, reputation, wealth, or looks, they could create an extremely strong attraction to people. However, the attraction of these things was inferior to one kind of attraction. The most fascinating thing that people could not help but want to explore was the sense of mystery. Black's entire body was constantly revealing a sense of mystery. A heroic youth who had previously caused a sensation on Star Web with consecutive victories had actually achieved such a battle result without even using his strongest Fae. Moreover, no one could be sure that this Fae that could manipulate sand was Black's strongest Fae. The news on Star Web spread extremely quickly, let alone when there were so many people at noon. Therefore, when Black and Poison Beauty encountered each other, the news immediately spread from her live streaming room. It immediately caused a large number of fans to pour into her live streaming room. This caused the number of viewers in her live streaming room to break through the previous upper limit and reach a new height. In fact, it was reasonable to say that even if the news on Star Web spread very quickly, it should not be at such a speed. The reason why it was so fast was because of the previous duel between Black and Poison Beauty. Some of Black's fans had entered Poison Beauty's live streaming room and become her haters. After these haters became Poison Beauty's haters, they became her haters. At the same time, he was viciously beautiful, and as he continued to viciously, he began to express his feelings. Therefore, when they had nothing to do, they would often stay in Poison Beauty's live streaming room to watch her live streaming. Poison Beauty's Fae combination might cause no team to be willing to accept her. This also caused Poison Beauty to never set foot in the field of team battles. However, Poison Beauty still worked very hard on the Star Web duel live streaming. As a Star Web dual live streaming. A typical live streaming from the Star Web Tower would only live stream for 4 to 5 hours a day. However, Poison Beauty could live stream for as long as 12 hours a day. In addition, she had been working hard during the live streaming like an artist. From time to time, she would start to scold the live streaming room's audience and wantonly ban them. Previously, Poison Beauty had sent hundreds of thousands of Radiance dollars in gifts, hoping that she could commentate the duel. In the end, after asking a few questions that Poison Beauty thought were retarded, Poison Beauty actually scolded Roll 1, who had spent hundreds of thousands of Radiance dollars in hopes that she would commentate. All kinds of tricks made Poison Beauty blacker and redder. In the past, Poison Beauty's live broadcast was quite entertaining, and some old fans liked to watch it. However, Poison Beauty's control in the live streaming room was definitely not as sharp as it was now. The reason why Poison Beauty would do such a thing now was because she had to be careful. It was also because he had encountered Lin Yuan in the duel and said some extremely arrogant words, so he had been targeted by Black Lin Yuan's fans. At first, Poison Beauty was a little distressed, but a few days later, she suddenly realized that Black received more attention than Red. Sometimes, there were even hints of red in the darkness. Therefore, Poison Beauty completely unleashed her nature. Like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins, she went on the path of moral integrity, never to return. Lin Yuan looked at Poison Beauty's expression and did not know what to say for a moment. Logically speaking, someone was talking to him, and it was an opponent he had met before. Lin Yuan should also go and greet them. However, Lin Yuan really did not know how to respond to Anti-Poison's words. When Poison Beauty saw that Black did not respond to her for a long time, she was not anxious or depressed at all. She now did not want Black to interact with her as much as before. This was because she had understood the true meaning of an actor. According to Poison Beauty's understanding, a good actor needed to use superb acting skills when the opponent was acting with her. They could display their acting skills to the fullest. Now, Poison Beauty felt that the real actor should be when she was singing. She should be able to act with herself. Even when acting alone, she had to be able to sing the feeling of two people competing. Such an actor could be called a good actor. An even more powerful actor had to be able to sing an opera troupe's play alone. Just like last time, Poison Beauty raised her hand and summoned her fays. Lin Yuan found that the fae that Poison Beauty summoned was still the same as when he had fought against her. There was no improvement. They were still the Gold 9/Elite Illusory Mist Jackdaw, and the Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider. There were also the Silver X/Elite Carrion Umbrella Mushroom, and the Silver X/Elite Tainted Toad. After summoning her fays, she faintly spread out the array. Poison Beauty said seamlessly, "Black, I know you want to poison me. Black, I know you want to poison me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been matched with me when I was matched up. Let us be matched together. Black, tell me quickly, are you also secretly watching my live streaming room?" The reason why Poison Beauty said this was to bring more popularity to herself and attract some anti-fans. With attention, she could earn more money. During this time, Poison Beauty had been working so hard to improve the Poison Weaving Dark Spider's quality. She wanted to improve the Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider to Gold 7/Epic through her own efforts. Now Poison Beauty's money was almost all saved up. The viewers in Poison Beauty's live streaming room followed Poison Beauty's words. There was an immediate uproar. When Lin Yuan heard her words, the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch, and he said helplessly, "What's the opposite of local necrosis? What's the opposite of local necrosis?" Lin Yuan's words caused Poison Beauty to be unable to react for a while. The audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room only heard a pleasant young voice with a cold taste ringing in their ears. The magnetism seemed to be able to make people reminisce for a long time. Although Black's fans were denouncing her in her live streaming room, the audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room, especially Black's mother fans, became excited. This was because Black had never said a word in all the videos in the Star Web video library. Moreover, it was said that when Black and Poison Beauty were fighting, he had also communicated verbally with her. However, The video of that battle was not recorded in the Celestial Stairway video library. Therefore, Black's words were recorded in the Celestial Stairway video library after the battle. Therefore, Black's words were recorded in the Celestial Stairway video library after the battle. It should be the only audio material that Black could find on Star Web. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 360. Poison Beauty felt that her entire being wasn't good. In just a few minutes, she had racked her brains to come up with a script. She had completely thought of what she was going to do, how she was going to say it later, how she was going to add scenes for herself, and how she was going to act smoothly. Then, how she was going to make her self-directed script reach the climax. However, Poison Beauty had never expected that Black would actually speak now. This was completely different from what Poison Beauty had in mind. Wasn't Black supposed to be aloof and cold? Was he not good with words? Why did he speak just like that? Poison Beauty was calculating the script in her mind. When she heard Black's question, she could not react for a long time. Poison Beauty could not help but feel a little nervous. What's the opposite of partial necrosis? At that moment, Poison Beauty heard the young man's cold voice. I'm so alive. But when this cold young man's voice was heard, Poison Beauty's temper immediately rushed up. Am I being ridiculed? Poison Beauty only felt that the back of her teeth were tight, and she needed to bite it hard to relieve it. Poison Beauty had been a Star Web streamer for a long time, and could completely imagine the audience's reaction in her live streaming room. Although she felt that her veteran actress had been insulted, she also knew that this situation was good for her live streaming room. However, Poison Beauty knew in her heart that such a situation was beneficial to her live streaming room. The popularity brought by the previous duel with Black had basically disappeared in the past 2 months. But now that she had encountered Black again, it would undoubtedly bring another wave of popularity to her live streaming room. However, now that he had encountered Black again, it would undoubtedly bring another wave of popularity to his live broadcast room. It might even be a foreshadowing of the previous popularity. This time, Black would bring even more popularity to her. Poison Beauty thought that if she did not have the quality of an actress to support her, she would probably be so happy that her entire body would be trembling. This was because she knew that the situation with Black this time was completely different from the previous one. The last time she was matched with Black, it was during the Celestial Stairway promotion duel, and would not be recorded in the Celestial Stairway video library. But now, this duel would undoubtedly be recorded in Black's Star Web video library. With Black's popularity, if this video was pushed to the top 10 of the Star Web video library by Black's male mother fans, then, wouldn't it be equivalent to me, Poison Beauty, also entering the top 10 of the Star Web video library? Regardless of whether I won or lost, I had this chance because I was matched with Black. Lin Yuan stood there and commanded the Gold Eye/Fantasy Eye Source Sand to create sand without leaving a trace. Suddenly, he heard Poison Beauty say, Black, last time, it was because I couldn't dodge your fatal blow. This time, I won't be so careless. Why don't we fight in 5 minutes? If you're an expert, wait for me to get ready before we fight. When Lin Yuan heard Poison Beauty's words, he only felt that this auntie's brain wasn't working, right? Star duels were not a child. Star Web duels were not a game for children. Losing and winning seemed easy. Just like last time, Poison Beauty had said so many words to stall for time. It was Fong Beauty's Black Beauty hat. The reason Lin Yuan had not made a move during the previous duel was because he had waited for Poison Beauty to make a move before counterattacking. It was also because he had needed the source sand to create a large amount of gravel underground to control Poison Beauty at the critical moment. Black with to Black's beauty. However, it was the result of Chimey and the source sand working together. If the source sand had not controlled the tainted toad, which had swallowed Poison Beauty, under the ground, if the tainted toad had jumped away when Chimey attacked, it would not have been able to kill it. Even if Chimey could kill the tainted toad, it might not have been able to kill Poison Beauty, who had been swallowed by the tainted toad as a meat shield. Now Chimey was asleep. Lin Yuan could not summon Chimey, and could only use the source sand. If he did not let the source sand create sand on a large scale, Lin Yuan would not expose Red Thorn. It was really not easy to win against a long-range poison support-type spirit chi professional like Poison Beauty, who took the unconventional path. If it had been a normal duel, Lin Yuan might have attacked the moment his opponent summoned a Fey. Thus he could end the battle quickly. However, Lin Yuan just stood there and let Poison Beauty perform. Lin Yuan's spiritual power was transmitted to the source sand underground through his feet. When the source sand received Lin Yuan's spiritual power, its sand creation speed was much faster than usual. Poison Beauty quickly let her Fey set up a formation. Although she said it would take 5 minutes, she did not need that much time. In just 2 minutes, she had perfectly unfolded her formation. The reason why she said 5 minutes was that Poison Beauty hoped that more people would enter her live streaming room. This way, her chances of receiving gifts would be higher, and she would be able to get more meals. Once the 5 minutes were up, Poison Beauty jumped onto the back of the Silver X/Elite Tainted Toad. Then, she let the Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider lay layer after layer of poisonous spider webs within 20 meters of her. Then, she let the Poison Weaving Dark Spider stay on the poisonous spider webs around her, ready to protect her at any time. This time, Poison Beauty did not let the illusory Mist Jackdaw spew out a large amount of poisonous fog. Due to her previous combat experience, she knew that the opponent was on the fantasy breed avian Fey. That layer of glazed flame could evaporate the poisonous fog that the illusory Mist Jackdaw spat out. Therefore, Poison Beauty did not intend to waste the spiritual power to let the illusory Mist Jackdaw release the fog. Instead, she planned to use the spiritual power on the Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider and the Silver X/Elite Carrion Mushroom. She let the carrion mushroom spread the fungi that could make wounds rot quickly all over the place. Compared to the water mist poison, these fungal poisons were undoubtedly much stronger in terms of resistance to high temperatures. Although Poison Beauty knew that her battle with Black could bring popularity, she was not convinced that she had lost to Black in the previous battle. Previously, she could not figure out why the Tainted Toad would send her a feedback that it was bound by the ground under its feet and could not jump at a critical juncture. Since she could not understand, she blamed it all on the Tainted Toad's feet being stuck in the soil when it used the land pollution ability. When the Tainted Toad used the land pollution ability again, the soil would indeed become as sticky as mud when it was covered with poison. Yesterday's third update asking for tickets, those who used the free coins to read this book. If you like it, make up for a full subscription. Woo, thank you for your continued support. End of this chapter. Chapter 361. This time, Poison Beauty looked at the perfect formation she had created and had the idea of defeating Black. If she could defeat Black, Poison Beauty believed that her popularity would not be as simple as being matched with Black. As the number of people in Poison Beauty's livestream increased, a thick layer of bullet comments covered the screen, basically blocking the battle scene. This caused the audience who only wanted to watch the duel to block the bullet screen. He waited patiently for the battle between the silver-masked youth. As for the viewers who were making fun of the bullet screen comments, they were thinking that after this battle ended, they would be able to watch a special video in the Star Web video library. Therefore, he was not in a hurry. After all, he was a fan of Black's mother. This was especially true for the male moms among the moms fans. Black's battle videos had to be watched at least 100 times. 5 minutes might seem like a short time, but it passed in the blink of an eye. However, during these 5 minutes, as he kept injecting spiritual power into the Gold Eye/Fantasy Eye Source Sand, the Source Sand's spiritual power had increased tremendously. As a result, the bottom of the stairway battle arena was filled with the Source Sand's sand particles. At the moment when Poison Beauty launched her attack, the Silver X/Elite Carrion Umbrella Mushroom sprayed a large amount of fungi that could rot flesh into the air. The Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider had secretly used the Mist Spiderweb earlier. The invisible, misty spiderweb melted into the air. Hence, at this moment, when the Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider used the web attachment skill, The atomized spider webs in the air combined with a large number of fungi that could make flesh rot, producing layers of venomous spider webs that pushed toward Lin Yuan. Poison Beauty's plan was very simple, which was to ensure her own safety. The poisonous spider web constantly reduced Lin Yuan's living space. In the end, they would use poison to slowly erode all the lives in the duel arena, using a battle of attrition to win the match. Under Poison Beauty's berserk attack, the ground trembled. Poison Beauty, including the viewers in her live streaming room, saw that the silver-masked youth didn't panic at all. The young man casually waved his hand. At this moment, apart from the ground beneath the silver-masked youth's feet, the entire celestial stairway duel arena had turned into a boiling sea of sand. As the sea of sand boiled, it frantically devoured anything that touched it. It wanted to sink everything that existed on the sea of sand into the sea of sand. Then, it was crushed by the heavy pressure of the sea of sand. At that moment, Poison Beauty, who was on the back of the tainted toad, could completely feel the powerlessness of the tainted toad under her feet in the sea of sand. Poison Beauty herself couldn't stop the filthy toad from sinking into the sea of sand, because the tainted toad's feet had just sunk into the boiling sea of sand. When Poison Beauty ordered the tainted toad to jump onto the web weaved by the gold 7/flawless poison weaving dark spider, she could no longer do it. Poison Beauty felt the familiar sense of restraint from the tainted toad. Poison Beauty couldn't help but shout, "Yar! This is the feeling." Although the poison-weaving dark spider was on the web, it didn't come into contact with the boiling sand below. But under the pull of the yellow sand raised by the sea of sand, soon, these stacked cobwebs would be pulled into the deepest part of the sea of sand after being stuck to a large amount of gravel. In just a moment, the poison-weaving dark spider would have nowhere to hide. Even a battle-hardened duelist like Poison Beauty couldn't deal with such a sudden and violent attack. Poison Beauty felt like she was a small, broken boat swaying in a natural disaster. She could sink and die at any moment. Under such a sea of sand, wanting to find a foothold was an extravagant hope. Therefore, Poison Beauty could only let the gold 9/elite illusory Miss Jackdaw pull her arm and bring her into the air. Only then did she barely escape the disaster. But before Poison Beauty could heave a sigh of relief, she saw over a dozen meandering blue-black chains vaguely appear in the sea of sand. At the front of the faintly discernible blue-black chains in the sea of sand was a huge blue-black broadsword with an extremely strong metallic luster. The moment the chain swords drilled out of the sea of sand, they flew nearly 10 meters into the air. In Poison Beauty's horrified gaze, these chain swords seemed to be intricate and precise. In an instant, they formed a blue-black steel cage. It firmly locked Poison Beauty and the gold 9/elite illusory Miss Jackdaw in the cage. At first, a few violent collisions could still be heard in the steel cage. These were the efforts of Poison Beauty and the gold 9/elite illusory Miss Jackdaw in order to break free of this steel cage. However, it was all in vain. Lin Yuan stood in the distance, stepping on the yellow sand. The yellow sand formed a huge palm under Lin Yuan's feet. The fingers of the palm were slightly bent, as if protecting Lin Yuan, who was standing in the center of the huge palm and commanding the battle. Such a scene was simply an artistic duel in the eyes of the audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room. In the world of sand, a silver-masked youth was like the king of sand, dominating everything in the world of sand. Such a scene was simply too shocking. As the blue-black chains danced, they pulled down the steel cage in midair. When the steel cage was pulled into the boiling quicksand, the quicksand boiled even more intensely. The quicksand boiled even more violently, forming a huge whirlpool of quicksand beneath the bluish-black steel cage. This blue-black steel cage seemed to be sealed with some evil, and was buried under the sea of sand. At that moment, a mournful and painful crow's cry faintly came from underground. At that moment, the audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room discovered that the silver-masked youth had actually won this star web duel. The boiling quicksand in the entire duel arena had already stopped boiling when the silver-masked youth won. Only the silver-masked youth stood ramrod straight, looking incomparably otherworldly against the sea of sand. Only the silver-masked youth stood ramrod straight, looking incomparably otherworldly against the backdrop of the sea of sand. At that moment, many of Poison Beauty's mother fans in Black's live streaming room turned into girlfriend fans. However, the people watching this duel in Poison Beauty's live streaming room, whether they were Black's fans or not, were all very excited. In their eyes, this duel proved that the silver-masked youth Black had used gravel to weave a miracle in the controlled Class 3 abyss-dimensional rift. They were all cheering for Black. The bullet comments in Poison Beauty's live streaming room were once again flooded with Black. Awesome. Bullet comments flooded the screen. This neat and tidy Black. Awesome. Awesome. It was like a declaration. It was an announcement that a silver-masked youth was creating miracles again and again and overcoming obstacles. Or rather, this silver-masked youth Black was a miracle in itself. Today's first update, end of this chapter. Chapter 362. It had to be said that although Black had not fought hard, he had won this duel. However, the content of this duel was extremely high because Black had subverted everyone's previous understanding of Black. Throughout this duel, Black had been using a combat system that he had never used before. It seemed that in this duel, Black had not displayed the complete combat power of this combat system. He had already ended the duel. At that moment, the audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room could not help but complain about her. Why was she so weak and let Black end the duel so quickly? She had not seen enough, okay? However, the audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room only complained. Although Poison Beauty had a lot of haters, none of her haters would criticize her strength. After all, her strength was obvious to all. Poison Beauty's strength did not lie in her Gold 9/Elite Illusory Mist Jackdaw and Gold 7/Flawless Poison Weaving Dark Spider, which were two outstanding Poison-type phase. Instead, it was because Poison Beauty contracted the Silver X/Elite Carrion Umbrella Mushroom and the Silver X/Elite Tainted Toad. These four Poison-type phase had coordinated their abilities and exclusive skills with each other. Otherwise, Poison Beauty would not have been so terrifying during the Celestial Stairway promotion duels. She was known as one of the most reliable gatekeepers during the Celestial Stairway promotion duels. At that moment, the audience in Poison Beauty's live streaming room was filled with countless curiosity. What exactly was that chain sword that came out of the sea of sand? How did Poison Beauty and the Cold Mist Jackdaw die in the depths of the sea of sand? Perhaps only Poison Beauty was clear about this. Perhaps it had happened so quickly that Poison Beauty had already lost her life before she could react. In any case, Black had once again broken everyone's previous impression of Black with a brand new stance. At the same time, Black's identity was shrouded in a thick layer of mystery, making people unable to help but explore. In the past, many people felt that Black's strength was due to his age and talent. Now, when mentioning Black's strength, they had to lament his age and talent. They had to lament Black's true strength. Black's stance was like a natural disaster that had instantly killed Poison Beauty, an experienced combat class Spirit Chi professional. From this point, it could be seen that Black's combat ability had completely exceeded the standard of gold. Previously, when Black was going to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence competition, even his fans felt that he was only participating this year. None of them felt that with the strength Black had displayed, he was qualified to pass the competition and become a Radiance 100 sequence member this year. But now, judging from the strength that Black had displayed, Black's strength was far superior to Black's. It did not seem impossible for Black to become a Radiance 100 sequence member this year. After all, the strength that Black had displayed had already reached the platinum level. In that case, did Black have any other trump cards that he had yet to reveal? Perhaps only the mysterious Black herself would know about this. After Lin Yuan completed this Celestial Stairway duel with Poison Beauty, the Celestial Stairway duel with Poison Beauty was completed. He was no longer preparing for another Celestial Stairway duel. He checked Black's personal information on StarWeb. Name, Black gender, male height, 179 cm weight, 62 star tower floor, Celestial Stairway 6-star Spirit Chi occupation, healing type professional profession level, advanced exclusive achievement, straight to the celestial stairway, ascended the celestial stairway from the star tower, without losing a single match. Contracted Fae, Morbius, Bronze 10/Legend, Thousand Questions Beast, Bronze 10/Legend, Twilight Starbird, Silver 1/Fantasy Eye, Red Thorn, Silver 1/Fantasy Eye, Acid Corrosion Queen Bee, Gold 1/Legend, Source Sand Gold 1/Fantasy Eye. Duel Record Sadface Star Tower. 100 duels, 100 wins 0 losses. 100 Highest Floor, Celestial Stairway Promotion Duel. 2 duels, 2 wins 0 losses. Celestial Stairway, 6 duels 6 wins 0 losses. 6 Highest Star Count. Lin Yuan looked at his Celestial Stairway, which had changed from Celestial 1 star to Celestial 6 stars. It was not difficult for Lin Yuan to experience 5 consecutive duels. The only one that could be considered difficult was the duel with Poison Beauty just now. If Poison Beauty had not given him so much time to prepare, Lin Yuan would have wanted to defeat her. In a situation where the source sand had not spread out its array, he would have needed to spend a lot of effort. However, Poison Beauty's stalling for time also happened to give Lin Yuan time to prepare. Looking at his personal information, Lin Yuan was surprised to find that it was almost the new year. He had grown a centimeter taller in the last few days of the new year. His height had increased from 178 to 179. Furthermore, he had also gained a kilo of weight. This discovery made Lin Yuan pleasantly surprised. Lin Yuan was a man who wanted to grow to 1.8 meters tall. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw Tian Ningning's message. Tian Ningning, Black God, you're amazing. Your elemental source-type life form is really too strong. When Lin Yuan saw Tian Ningning's message, he couldn't help but blink. I don't think I can afford to be called Black God. Black, just call me Black. For some reason, when Tian Ningning saw Black's message, her heart skipped a beat. He only felt a sense of youthfulness. It was as if a teenager was shy after receiving praise. Tian Ningning recalled the elemental source-type life form that Lin Yuan had just revealed and asked. Tian Ningning, Black God, can you tell me the grade of that elemental source-type life form that can control gravel? When Lin Yuan saw Tian Ningning's message, he couldn't bear to look at her address. However, there was no hesitation when he replied. Black, Gold Eye/Fantasy Eye. He felt that there was no need to hide his source-type source sand's grade. He knew that even if he did not tell Tian Ningning, Star Web scholars would analyze it. Rather than letting the Star Web scholars analyze it and let others know about it, it was better to let Tian Ningning post it openly. When Tian Ningning saw Lin Yuan's message, she was elated. At the same time, she was secretly shocked by Lin Yuan's strength. After chatting for a while, Tian Ningning still asked Lin Yuan how to write the battle records of the 5-star web duels. After giving a brief reply, he logged off Star Web. Lin Yuan looked at the mirror in the room and wanted to see if he had really grown taller by 1 centimeter. After looking for a while, Lin Yuan let out a sigh. It was impossible to tell that he had grown a centimeter taller. Furthermore, Lin Yuan had also gained 500 grams of weight, but he didn't know where he had gained weight. Someone knocked on Lin Yuan's door. Lin Yuan opened the door and saw Lu Jie standing there in high spirits. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan said with a smile, Big brother Lu, has the cocoon of evolution completed its parasitism? Upon hearing that, a different look flashed in Lu Jie's eyes. Yes, the source-type cocoon of evolution has parasitized the insect queen. It won't be long before the cocoon of evolution reproduces in the insect queen's body and absorbs its energy. It will soon be able to promote to normal. At that time, my insect queen's normal inscribed bayonet beetles can also be enhanced. When Lin Yuan saw the look in Lu Jie's eyes, he knew that the heart of insect swarm's fighting spirit and ambition had returned. Beast Evolution Quotient Latest Chapter 363 Lin Yuan had grown taller. Website. Chapter 363. If one were to ask who understood a person the most, then it would undoubtedly be that person himself. The same principle applied to Lu Jie. In this world, only Lu Jie understood himself the best. After obtaining the source-type cocoon of evolution from Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. After Lu Jie returned to his room to prepare, He let the source-type item cocoon of evolution parasitize the insect queen. When Lu Jie heard about it, he knew how helpful this source-type cocoon of evolution would be to him. The cocoon of evolution had parasitized the insect queen. As the insect queen's contractor, Lu Jie could naturally feel the improvement to the insect queen after the source-type item cocoon of evolution leveled up. This was a complete qualitative change. Previously, Lu Jie felt that he could not continue to develop as a combat-class spirit chi professional. This was because Lu Jie had discovered that the core of his battle strategy, the bayonet beetles, which formed the foundation of his insect swarm, were weak. But now, Lu Jie only needed to slowly let the insect queen provide energy to the source-type cocoon of evolution. It allowed the source-type cocoon of evolution to increase its grade and quality. After the source-type cocoon of evolution grew, every unit in the swarm would undergo a qualitative change. On the basis of qualitative change, quantitative change was carried out. Then, the increase in strength would show a trend of exponential growth. Lu Jie was now very confident about his future. Sometimes, when one regained their confidence and took a step forward on the previous path, it was equivalent to being firm towards the same goal twice. While Lin Yuan was happy for Lu Jie, he pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. Brother Lu, I'll get you some protein cocoon chrysalises in the next few days." Letting the insect queen consume a large amount of protein cocoon chrysalises will be of great help in improving the quality and level of the cocoon of evolution. When Lin Yuan had used true data to check the source-type cocoon of evolution, he had found out. The cocoon of evolution was a parasitic source-type life form, like the acid corrosion queen bee. But in terms of growth, it was extremely similar to red thorn. The source-type cocoon of evolution could only absorb the energy of the host to upgrade its level and quality. Moreover, the cocoon of evolution was a mycelium-type source-type life form. In addition to energy, the mycelium's reproduction and division also required a lot of insect protein. The protein cocoon chrysalis was a relatively common spiritual ingredient. Due to its rich insect synthetic protein, it had always been the favorite of insect species phase. Most insect species phase would grow carapaces. Therefore, some spirit chi professionals would feed insect species phase some protein cocoon chrysalises during the critical period of their evolution to assist in their evolution. It could be said that this protein cocoon chrysalis, which was rich in synthetic insect proteins, had many benefits for the insect queen's evolution. Although the protein cocoon chrysalis was a relatively common spiritual material, however, his insect queen was already a platinum/fantasy breed source-type life form. A platinum/fantasy breed source-type life form's energy level had even reached the diamond level. Therefore, the protein silkworm chrysalises consumed by Lu Jie's insect queen had to be at least gold grade in order to be effective on the insect queen and the cocoon of evolution. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the protein cocoon chrysalis that were most suitable for the insect queen to consume should be based on the insect queen's energy level, which was diamond. If Lu Jie's contracted insect queen could consume the diamond rank protein silkworm chrysalises, in that case, it would be most beneficial to the insect queen and the cocoon of evolution. The benefits of eating the platinum protein cocoon chrysalis were not small. However, compared to the diamond protein silkworm chrysalis, it was still far inferior. Moreover, if the diamond protein silkworm chrysalis was eaten over time, it could also subtly improve the insect queen's quality as a fantasy breed source-type life form. This situation was similar to when the spirit-drawing ichthyosaur, Blackie, had eaten the butterfly shell flower to stimulate the dragon species bloodline in its body. Just eating it once or twice would not have any effect. If it could be eaten over time, the improvement would be very obvious after a period of time. If not for the source-type cocoon of evolution, Lin Yuan would not have been able to enhance other phase in the same way. When Lin Yuan had used the spirit chi crystals to enhance phase, the source-type cocoon of evolution's quality and grade would increase. However, it did not matter. If he could feed the insect queen the diamond protein silkworm chrysalis, it would increase the cocoon of evolution's grade and grade. Whether it was the insect queen's grade or the cocoon of evolution's grade and quality, It would be a good way to kill two birds with one stone. Although the diamond protein silkworm chrysalis were not priceless, they were still very expensive. This was also why the stronger the spirit chi professionals were, the scarcer the resources would be. Lin Yuan, I've been feeding the insect queen gold protein cocoon chrysalises. At this rate, the cocoon of evolution will successfully grow from a mycelium life form to a normal source-type life form in 2 months. As soon as Lu Jie finished speaking, Lin Yuan waved his hand and said, "That's right. Brother Lu, I'll think of a way to get some high-level protein cocoon chrysalises in the next few days." Before Lu Jie could speak, Lin Yuan continued to speak. With the discovery of this source-type cocoon of evolution, I can see more possibilities for the insect queen. Big Brother Lu, although you can't contract other phase, there might not be only one source-type item like the cocoon of evolution. A source-type item with the same function as the cocoon of evolution might be discovered in the process of collecting a large number of source-type items. Lu Jie originally wanted to refuse Lin Yuan's help in finding the protein cocoon chrysalises. On one hand, Lu Jie could earn enough money to buy the protein cocoon chrysalis if he worked hard. On the other hand, it was also because she was used to being independent in the past, so she subconsciously rejected it. However, now that Lin Yuan had finished speaking, Lu Jie could no longer think of rejecting it. Lu Jie did not think of rejecting it again. Although Lu Jie had not said any words of gratitude recently, there had always been indescribable gratitude in his heart. 3 redemptions had ignited light in his life, which was a supreme kindness. However, not only were there 3 redemptions, but the youth in front of him had also given him the right to look forward to it. Lu Jie felt that he really had nothing to repay. The only thing he could do was to become stronger and use his life to protect it. Lu Jie looked at Lin Yuan and nodded firmly. "Okay, I've returned to the Radiance 100 sequence now. I can go to the Guild Alliance to apply for the establishment of a guild club. If you go and do it, there's no need to go through an audit. It can be done on the same day. I'll go and do it in a while." Lu Jie had actually come to Lin Yuan for this matter. Yesterday's 3rd update, end of this chapter. Chapter 364. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. "Brother Lu, it just so happens that you can go to the Guild Alliance today to apply to establish a club-like guild. In 2 days, ask Uncle Hu to find someone to build the base of the guild club on the vacant land behind the manor. In a few more days, Lin Yuan gave the Bronze X/Legend Wood Weaving House Centipede to Hu Quan to contract. At that time, Hu Quan would be promoted to a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman, although Hu Quan was already at the level of a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman. However, having the standard of a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman and becoming a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman, recognized by the Radiance Federation, were completely different. After Hu Quan became a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman, he would become the Radiance Federation's top lifestyle class Spirit Chi professional. Naturally, he would come into contact with other 5-star lifestyle class Spirit Chi professionals. At that time, Hu Quan would invisibly pull in a batch of Class 5 lifestyle class Spirit Chi professionals for Lin Yuan. He had Hu Quan, a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman. If Lin Yuan wanted to look for these Class 5 lifestyle class Spirit Chi professionals to do things in the future, it would be much more convenient. Lu Jie looked at Lin Yuan and said seriously, "Young master, what should we call the guild club we're going to establish?" When Lin Yuan heard how Lu Jie addressed him, he raised his brows slightly. Lu Jie usually called him by his name because of his previous request. However, Lu Jie would still call him young master during critical moments. As for the guild club's name, Lin Yuan had never thought about it. However, since he wanted to establish a guild club and participate in the Guild Alliance's tournament, therefore, the goal of the clubs and guilds would definitely be to work hard towards the championship. Since they wanted to win the championship, they had to be unafraid of the clouds that cover their eyes, only because they are at the highest level. The highest level of the sky was the dome. The dome of the heavens is considered the highest. Let's call our guild club the Dome of the Heavens. When Lu Jie heard Lin Yuan say the word dome, he felt a chill run down his spine. It was as though she could feel the magnificent waves in Lin Yuan's heart. Just a glimpse of this magnificent scene filled Lu Jie with a sense of heroism. Lu Jie kept repeating in his mind. The top of the sky. The top of the vault of heaven. The dome of heaven. This was a kind of awe-inspiring heroic spirit. After leaving Lin Yuan's room for a long time, Lu Jie still clenched his fists tightly. After Lu Jie left the room, Lin Yuan looked in the mirror and touched the back of his head, feeling a little conflicted. It was a happy thing that he had grown taller. However, he had clearly grown a centimeter taller, but he couldn't see it. He felt a little uncomfortable. As for the diamond-grade protein cocoon chrysalis, the easiest way for him to get it was to spend a massive amount of radiance dollars to buy it on the market. No matter how expensive the things that could be bought on the market were, in a sense, not precious. This was also why he had not thought of using the flower brocade pearls to exchange for the diamond protein silkworm chrysalis. As a diamond-rank spiritual material, the diamond-rank protein silkworm chrysalises were circulating in the market. This was because the protein cocoon chrysalis was a diamond insect species phase cocoon that was constantly retreating. Furthermore, this diamond insect species phase could shed the protein cocoon chrysalis at least 5 times a year. For spirit materials that were relatively easy to obtain, exchanging scarce resources for them was an extremely unwise thing to do. Even if he did not care about these losses, he would definitely not do so from the perspective of developing his faction. If he wanted to develop a force, he had to ensure that everything was done in an orderly manner, and that all resources should be allocated and integrated in the most reasonable manner. Only in this way could he accumulate a boundless foundation. Lu Jie was now Radiance 100 sequence number 30, and the Radiance Sacred Hall had announced it. This made many of Lu Jie's fans, who had been following him since he entered the Radiance 100 sequence, cry. Everyone in the mansion was happy for Lu Jie. Bai Hao and Wang Fan were the happiest. Bai Hao and Wang Fan were Radiance 100 sequence members and members of the A-Rank Guild Club's main force. Bai Hao and Wang Fan had long known that Lu Jie was going to return to the Radiance 100 sequence. However, when Bai Hao and Wang Fan were at the Radiance Sacred Hall's venue and witnessed Lu Jie's return to the Radiance 100 sequence, hot tears gushed out uncontrollably. The tears were the testimony of many years of friendship. Therefore, Bai Hao and Wang Fan couldn't help smiling for the next few days. However, on the second day of the competition, the Star Web reporters wrote that it was a mocking smile for the opponent. This matter made Bai Hao and Wang Fan very annoyed. On the day Lu Jie went to the Guild Alliance to apply for the establishment of a guild club, it was completed. This was enough to prove the privileges of the Radiance 100 sequence members in the Radiance Federation. However, Lu Jie did not choose to let the Guild Alliance directly announce the Dome Guild Club. Instead, he planned to announce it when he participated in this year's Radiance 100 sequence competition and became a Radiance 100 sequence member 2 months later. This was because when Lu Jie applied to establish the Dome Guild Club, there was only one word added in the column of the president's name. This word was black. Over the past few days, Lin Yuan had used the blind trade method. He had used 10 flower brocade pearls to exchange for about 170 drops of silver WRM species, phase essence blood. This harvest made Lin Yuan feel very dissatisfied. Although silver WRM species phase essence blood was rare, it was not very useful. The rarity of silver WRM species phase made the flower brocade pearls a creation master's favorite. The amount of silver WRM species phase blood that could be exchanged was still limited. This time, Lin Yuan could not say that he had suffered a loss, but he definitely did not make a profit. This matter also made Lin Yuan understand that the blind trade method was not suitable for exchanging for particularly unorthodox things. However, these 170 drops of silver WRM species, phase essence blood, were more than enough for the spirit-drawing ichthyosaur Blackie. At the same time, Lin Yuan had also used the market price to buy 3 diamond protein silkworm chrysalises for Lu Jie in the rare lifeform pavilion. The platinum/fantasy breed insect queen often needed close to 10 days to consume and absorb a diamond protein silkworm chrysalis. These 3 diamond protein silkworm chrysalises were enough for Lu Jie to use for a month. With the diamond protein silkworm chrysalises, Lin Yuan believed that it would not take 15 days. The source-type cocoon of evolution could be promoted to normal. Over the past few days, Lin Yuan had been frantically enhancing the usnias. He had enhanced a large number of bronze usnias to silver. Lin Yuan was using this method to gradually enhance the spiritual power contained in his body. After returning from the question and answer session with the Moon Empress on Radiant Moon Mountain, Lin Yuan was preparing to put the 3 silver/legend mountain eternal life carps into the red sandalwood longevity fish tank. He also gave the bronze/legend wood weaving house centipede, which had split during the evolution, to Hu Quan. Lin Yuan's phone rang. Genius was currently lying in Lin Yuan's arms. Genius kept rolling around in Lin Yuan's arms and acted coquettishly. It still tickled Lin Yuan from time to time and played with him. Lin Yuan was most afraid of tickles, so he had to constantly avoid Genius' mischievous little paws. After Genius evolved into the 1,000 questions beast, its habit of sleeping had improved a lot. However, it would become very energetic in the afternoon, and its habit of becoming more and more troublesome had not changed at all. When Genius heard Lin Yuan's phone ring, it said, "Lin Yuan, quickly pick up the phone." When Genius saw how Genius was making a fuss in his arms, Lin Yuan could not help but lovingly stroke Genius' soft fur. "If it wasn't for you always making a fuss, I would have picked up the phone long ago." Genius was still making a fuss previously, but when Lin Yuan picked up the phone, Genius obediently stayed in Lin Yuan's arms and did not move at all. Genius was still making a fuss previously, but when Lin Yuan picked up the phone, Genius obediently stayed in Lin Yuan's arms and did not move at all. The sensible one was afraid of disturbing Lin Yuan's conversation with others. When Lin Yuan picked up the phone, he heard Listen's voice coming from the other end. "Expert, I have already arrived at the agreed location." Listen was standing at the entrance of the manor, looking a little nervous. Listen knew that today's meeting would determine his and the listening deer chamber of commerce's future. Lin Yuan patted Genius, who was in his embrace. "Go, smart guy. Go to the manor gate and bring the guest in." Today's first update, end of chapter. Chapter 365. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Genius replied in a childish voice. "Lin Yuan, meow. I'm going now." Lin Yuan reached out his hand and helped Genius comb the fluffy and long fur on its head. He then gently rubbed Genius' head twice and was about to bend down to put Genius down. At that moment, Genius leaped up from Lin Yuan's embrace and jumped to Lin Yuan's neck. It rubbed its fluffy and delicate face against Lin Yuan's cheek. Then, it jumped and gracefully landed on the ground from Lin Yuan's shoulder. As Genius ran, its 2 long, pure white tails shook elegantly behind it. Its posture was indescribably graceful. Lin Yuan felt the residual warmth on his face and revealed a bright smile. Chimey was still in a deep slumber, and apart from accompanying Lin Yuan, Genius didn't spend much time with him. Genius usually guarded Chimey under the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. Among all of Lin Yuan's fays, as Genius had evolved from a housekeeping beast like the 100 Questions beast, it had the highest intelligence. Therefore, among all of Lin Yuan's fays, apart from the bracelet that Morbius usually wore on Lin Yuan's wrist, Genius took good care of the other fays. Even the blue flash purple butterfly, which was not very enthusiastic toward Lin Yuan, would fly around Genius for a while every time Genius entered the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan had been with Genius and Chimey for so many years, so he naturally knew Genius very well. Genius might be very sensible, but it was still a feline fae. In the end, Genius was also a feline fae. Feline fays had always been arrogant by nature, just like that gold cat species fae that Xianing had contracted. Normally, apart from Xianing, it would not even bother with Zhang Xiaobai. It was the same for Genius, but apart from the other feline fae's pride, it was also very sensible. Genius had extremely high intelligence and could clearly see Lin Yuan's interpersonal relationships and preferences. Therefore, Genius would try its best to accept the people or things that Lin Yuan accepted. Just like now in the manor, not to mention Lu Jie, Wen Yu and Hu Quan. Even the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer, who were also fays, liked to play with Genius when they were free. However, when facing some unrelated people, Genius completely maintained the indifference and elegance of a feline fae. For example, Listen, who was standing at the mansion's entrance. Listen might have high EQ and was good at handling interpersonal relationships. However, the longer he stood at the entrance of the manor, the more nervous Listen became. At this time, the sky was getting dark, but one could still vaguely see things in the distance. Standing at the entrance of the manor, Listen discovered that it was already early winter in the royal capital. However, the interior of the manor in front of him was as green as midsummer, and there was a faint bamboo fragrance wafting from it. As the saying goes, a man cannot live without bamboo. The diffuse bamboo fragrance wafted into Listen's nose. The bamboo fragrance, which should have calmed him down, made Listen even more nervous. At that moment, Listen heard a childish but polite voice ring in his ears. "Welcome to the return from Faraway Manor. Follow me." Upon hearing this sound, Listen searched for a long time before discovering that it was a pure white cat. At this moment, the pure white cat was squatting in the middle of the entrance of the manor. The pale blue eyes were looking at him with a trace of alienation and sizing him up. Listen hurriedly said, Thank you. You've worked hard." After Listen finished speaking, the white cat stood up and walked in front, leading the way. From time to time it would look back. Listen kept having the feeling that the white cat was looking back to see if the person behind it had lost track of it. When Listen first saw the white cat, he subconsciously thought that it was a housekeeping beast. However, he immediately dispelled this thought. This was because in this world, there would not be any housekeeping beast as light and elegant as the white cat in front of him. Housekeeping beasts were simply too common. When Listen was young, he also had a top-notch housekeeping beast. Even the top-notch housekeeping beast could not have the vigor in the eyes of the white cat in front of him. Moreover, this white cat had two tails behind it. From far away, Listen saw a large manor in front of him that emitted a soft halo. However, he did not think much about it. The closer he got, the more nervous he became. When he got close to the manor, Listen suddenly discovered a horizontal board above the manor. The words "Return from Far Away" were engraved on the horizontal board. What surprised Listen was not the words on the horizontal board, but the material of the horizontal board was actually completely jade-textured old willow wood. Before Listen could have too many thoughts of being surprised, the childish voice rang in his ears again. "We're here." Then Listen saw the white cat with two tails leap forward. Listen looked up and saw that the white cat had already jumped into the arms of a sunny youth of about 18 or 19 years old. It was intimately rubbing this sunny youth's neck. Listen also recognized this sunny youth in front of him. This youth was the one he had met on Star Web, the one who could casually take out any kind of bronze/epic fae. He was also a god with at least the resources of an advanced Class 4 creation master. When Listen looked at Lin Yuan also looked up and sized up this young man with phoenix eyes and a beauty mole at the corner of his eye. Lin Yuan found that this young man with phoenix eyes and a beauty mole at the corner of his eye could be seen to be capable and calm. Under the capability and calmness, there was a trace of maturity that did not match his appearance. He had obviously experienced a lot of storms and waves. It was just that Listen's almond-shaped eyes had very heavy dark circles around them, and he had the air of a prostitute. Clearly, Listen had been dealing with the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's mess. After dealing with the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's mess, he immediately rushed over. Lin Yuan replied with a smile, "Come in and take a seat." After saying that, Lin Yuan took the lead and sat on the water rhinoceros leather sofa. Then, he picked up the three treasures tea on the table and poured a cup for himself and Listen. However, Listen, who was behind Lin Yuan, had already exposed the mansion's furnishings when Lin Yuan walked inside. Listen was completely dumbfounded at the door. Usually, Listen would think that he was too tired and anxious, so he was in a trance. Or he could guess at the jade-like luster in front of him, which was decorated almost entirely with jade-textured wood. Could it be an imitation made from ordinary jade stones? However, the calming effect of the halo and the unique texture of the wood told listeners that all of this was real. Even though Listen had a very high EQ, he was also stunned for a moment. When Listen came back to his senses, he found that the sunny youth had already sat there and poured 2 cups of steaming tea, looking at him calmly. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 366. At that moment, Listen felt that his horizons had suddenly changed. Previously, Listen had felt that the arrangement of those rising factions, which used a large number of high-grade plant phase to decorate the rooms, was already extremely luxurious. But now, looking at this mansion in front of him, Listen seemed to truly know what was called unparalleled foundation. Listen resisted his surprise and sat in front of the youth. Before Listen could speak, he heard the sunny youth opposite him say, "It's cold in early winter, and you're not wearing much. It's early winter, and you're not wearing much. Drink some hot tea to warm yourself up." Lin Yuan had called Listen over this time, because he had already planned to accept the loyalty of Listen and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. However, Lin Yuan still wanted to know what difficulties the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce currently encountered through Listen. Lin Yuan wanted to take over the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce and let Listen manage it as a wisp of dust under his cloud layer, because the Chamber of Commerce could bring convenience to Lin Yuan. As long as the difficulties encountered by Listen and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce were less than or equal to the convenience brought by the Chamber of Commerce's functions, Lin Yuan was willing to accept the loyalty of Listen and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. If trouble and convenience were equal, it would mean that what Lin Yuan did was useless. Even so, Lin Yuan was willing to bring Listen and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce under his command. This was because Lin Yuan fancied Listen's talent. If Lin Yuan wanted to establish a private faction where everyone was an elite, talented people like Listen were still very necessary. Lin Yuan raised his brows slightly as he took a sip of the Three Treasures tea in the sweet white glazed teacup in his hand. The Three Treasures tea in the cup should be called the Four Treasures tea. When you brewed the Three Treasures tea, she had put in a rather rare plum. The addition of the plum made the Three Treasures tea's taste richer. The sourness and sweetness in the plum eliminated the fragrance of the oil in the pine nuts. On the contrary, it set off the fragrance of the other 2 ingredients in the Three Treasures tea, Plum Blossom and Buddha's Hand. When Listen heard Lin Yuan's words, his heart warmed. No matter what, this sunny youth in front of him gave him equality and respect. For so many years, especially after the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's incident, Listen had been troubled by the Class 3 Creation Master's retainers many times. But at this moment, just the mansion that this sunny youth lived in had immeasurable wealth. With such a foundation, when the sunny youth treated him like an old friend. First, he poured a cup of hot tea for himself to wash away the coldness of early winter, as if he was meeting an old friend. This feeling made Listen feel warm and fuzzy. Listen picked up the teacup and took a sip. Listen had rushed all the way and did not care about drinking water at all. He was already thirsty when he stood at the entrance of the manor. Now, with just a small sip, the fragrance of the plum immediately made his mouth water. But then, Listen tasted the tea in his mouth. Although his expression did not change, the more he thought about it, the more shocked he became. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce mainly sold Buddha hand flowers. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had channels for Buddha hand flowers ranging from bronze to gold. Furthermore, it supplied many Class 4 and Class 5 shops on Star Web. This allowed Listen to understand the Buddha's hand flower very well. When Listen first tasted the Buddha's hand flower in the tea, he didn't have any reaction. Immediately after, Listen discovered that the taste of this Buddha's hand flower was very similar to the platinum Buddha's hand flower that he had tasted before. It was just that the taste was much richer. If the platinum Buddha's hand flower was air-dried and sold as a spiritual ingredient, a small piece would cost more than 300,000 radiance dollars. Such a precious thing was actually placed in the teacup as an imperceptible light taste in the tea, just to enrich the taste. Such luxury once again made Listen understand the foundation of this cheerful youth in front of him. It had to be known that having money and not treating money as money were actually two different levels to a certain extent. Lin Yuan saw that Listen had drunk the hot tea and warmed up his body. Tell me about the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yuan went straight to the point and asked the main topic. If it were someone else, they might polish for a long time to give an answer that would be the most beneficial to them. However, Listen did not do so. Instead, he truthfully picked out the key points of all the problems and difficulties he had encountered and introduced them clearly. Listen did not elaborate on the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's advantages. This was because he knew that the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's advantages should not be considered much in the eyes of this youth in front of him. Therefore, Listen focused on the difficulties the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had encountered. As Lin Yuan listened to Listen's words, his fingers gently tapped on the completely jade-textured table in front of him, letting out a light sound. After Listen finished his introduction, he was no longer nervous and anxious. Listen had placed everything in front of this youth in front of him. Therefore, how would this youth decide next? Listen knew that he only needed to wait. When Listen had first arrived at the mansion, he had been too nervous and shocked, so he walked a little stiffly. Now that he had relaxed, Listen picked up the tea in the teacup on the table and took a sip. Immediately after, when Listen turned his head, he saw a spectacle that did not belong to the human world. In this purple brilliance, there were butterflies flapping their wings and 5 fortune ranches swimming in the purple brilliance. Listen only felt that his titanium eyes had been pierced directly. The 5 fortune ranchu wasn't too rare. An elite 5 fortune ranchus was only 60 to 70 radiance dollars. However, where could he see a large group of bronze/flawless 5 fortune ranchus? Listen, who was drinking tea, was startled and started coughing. At that moment, Lin Yuan also finished thinking about it. The trouble the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce encountered now was a rising faction that wanted to take over the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. However, behind this rising faction was the shadow of a veteran faction that did not have a rich foundation. This veteran faction was the faction that had absorbed the Class 4 Creation Master and 3 Class 3 Creation Masters from the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Even if a veteran faction did not have rich trump cards, it would at least have a Class 4 Creation Master. In terms of combat power, if a faction was recognized as a veteran faction by other factions, then it must have combat power above King Class. However, it could not be said that the faction that targeted the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce must have Emperor Class experts in terms of combat power. The Radiance Federation's positioning of Emperor Class experts was that only S-rank Spirit Chi professionals and Myth Breed Phase could be called Emperor Class experts. However, the definition of combat power above King Class was relatively vague. As long as it was a suzerain/Myth 3 Fae, even if it did not become a Myth Breed, it could be said to have combat power above King Class. In terms of combat power, as a suzerain/Myth 3 Fae, Endless Summer was already at the peak of Emperor Class combat power. Therefore, although Lin Yuan's private faction had fewer people in terms of combat power, however, in terms of peak combat power, it did not lose to other factions. Baidu read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 367. Lin Yuan was only taking over the empty shell of the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, which was not a big deal. Moreover, the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's Creation Master resources had already been absorbed by the veteran factions. If this veteran faction bit him, after he took over the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, he wouldn't be able to survive. Since Lin Yuan had decided to establish his own faction, he would not be able to do so. He did not mind using this veteran faction without any foundation to establish his dominance. This way, they could also intimidate the other veteran forces with a foundation in the future. He wanted those veteran forces with deep foundations to consider whether they were qualified or not when they set their eyes on his private forces. Apart from the clash of combat strength, as long as the opponent didn't have a Class 5 Creation Master, They would also be able to compete with each other in terms of resources. He was confident that he would have the upper hand. Even if the other party had a Class 5 Creation Master, if they were to compete in the resources of Bronze/Legend phase, they wouldn't be able to compete. Lin Yuan actually dared to compete with a Class 5 Creation Master in terms of foundation. After weighing the pros and cons, Lin Yuan decided to accept Listen and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's allegiance. Although the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was only an empty shell, its channels and functions were still there. Under Listen's handling, it could be said that 1,000 things were waiting to be done. Currently, the only trouble they had encountered was a rising force under a veteran force, which was eyeing them covetously and wanting to annex them. Compared to a talent like Listen, Lin Yuan felt that he was not at a disadvantage. Since Lin Yuan was done weighing, he raised the teacup in his hand and extended it forward. When Listen saw Lin Yuan's action, an ecstatic expression appeared on his face. Listen hurriedly picked up the teacup in his hand and knocked it with Lin Yuan's. Then, he excitedly drank the three treasures tea in one gulp. Then, Listen half knelt on the ground with the etiquette of a knight. A silver rune shot out of Listen's mental strength. "I'll listen and swear by the willpower rune." Then, Listen looked at the cheerful youth sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa. Lin Yuan did not stop Listen's actions and just said, "Listen to me. I am Lin Yuan." Upon hearing that, Listen replied respectfully with a solemn expression, "I, Listen, swear by the willpower rune to dedicate my life and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to Lin Yuan. I only ask for protection so that I can lead the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce." Listen did not say what would happen if he broke the oath. This was because Listen had dedicated everything he had to Lin Yuan in his oath. As long as Lin Yuan thought about it, he could deprive Listen of his control over the willpower rune. It caused Listen to be rejected by the will of heaven and earth. Although this would not take Listen's life, to some extent, being rejected by the will of heaven and earth was no different from taking his life. Listen had used a willpower rune to make such a heavenly oath, and it could not be said to be light. However, Listen had used the willpower rune to make such an oath not only to express his loyalty, but also for himself. Listen had actually been considering whether to pledge loyalty to Lin Yuan during this time. After all, Listen had only seen Lin Yuan once on Star Web, so he did not know much about him. However, after thinking for a while, Listen smiled bitterly and realized that he was not qualified to think at all. Listen knew that even if he and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce attached themselves, it was very likely that they would become dispensable pawns. That was also the best choice out of all the options he currently had. Now that Listen had attached himself, what he had to do next was to maximize his value as much as possible. To prove his ability, this would allow him and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to get more resources. From this moment on, Listen had become Lin Yuan's true servant. These servants and retainer knights were different from guardians. From this moment on, as long as Lin Yuan protected the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, he would be Listen's master. At that moment, Hu Quan pushed open the room's door. He walked out of the room. Hu Quan looked like he had just woken up and was still a little confused when he walked out of the room. According to the usual time, this should be the time when Hu Quan started to become a tool and work. Hu Quan was already in a daze, but when he went downstairs and saw the scene in front of him, he felt that he had not woken up yet. What posture are these two youths downstairs in? It's too strange. Hu Quan did not witness the entire process of Listen swearing with the willpower rune. However, just by looking at this half-kneeling youth with phoenix eyes and a beauty mole at the corner of his eye, he knew this youth should also be considered a member of Lin Yuan's side. After Listen used the willpower rune to make the oath, Lin Yuan stepped forward and reached out to pull him up from the ground. Lin Yuan did not refuse when Listen used the willpower rune to swear loyalty to him. This was because using a willpower rune to make an oath in this world was indeed a very powerful guarantee. Just like in Lin Yuan's previous life, the relationship between people always had to be on guard against each other in the face of absolute interests. If one party unilaterally tore up an agreement regardless of the consequences, in that case, This agreement was no different from a piece of scrap paper. However, in this life, using the willpower rune to make an oath was equivalent to turning an agreement into an irrevocable oath. If the party who swore with the willpower rune tore up the agreement, they would have to pay the price equivalent to their lives. This was a bit like two strangers getting married before falling in love. Lin Yuan was embarrassed at the thought of this. What kind of strange analogy was this? After Listen used the willpower rune to make an oath, Lin Yuan could indeed use Listen with ease and pour resources into Listen and the listening heron chamber of commerce. He could let Listen display his talents and develop the listening heron chamber of commerce. At the same time, Listen's development of the listening heron chamber of commerce could also bring more benefits to Lin Yuan. This was considered a win-win situation for both Lin Yuan and Listen. After Listen used the willpower rune to make an oath, he directly became one of Lin Yuan's trusted people. Lin Yuan saw Hu Quan walking over and said, "Uncle Hu, it's better to be busy during the day and sleep at night." "Uncle Hu, you should be busy during the day and sleep at night in the future. Staying up late hurts the liver." In Lin Yuan's opinion, even if Hu Quan was a liver emperor, he would not be able to take it in the long run. After all, even Zhang Xiaobai knew to soak wolfberries in a thermos cup for health. Hu Quan hurriedly waved his hand and said, "The dead of the night is more compatible with craftsmanship." When Listen heard Hu Quan's words, the way he looked at Hu Quan changed slightly. In Listen's heart, he had already given Hu Quan, this uncle with a sloppy beard, a colored label. The corners of Lin Yuan's mouth twitched slightly. He could not force Hu Quan not to sleep at night, so he would let Lu Jie give Hu Quan some food supplements. Lin Yuan was originally prepared to give Hu Quan the bronze/legend wood weaving house centipede that he had evolved before. Now that Hu Quan walked over, Lin Yuan said, "Today's first update, a new main storyline has been brewing for a long time. Tickets requested. Welcome to the book club and drive enthusiastically." End of this chapter. Chapter 368. Uncle Hu, have you reported to the Spirit Craftsman Association? While speaking, Lin Yuan took a hibiscus cake that Wen Yu had baked from the table. He tore the hibiscus cake into small pieces and fed it to Genius, who was nestled in his arms. Genius was quite fond of these soft desserts. However, when it came to the taste, Genius' taste was the same as Lin Yuan's. They both loved to eat meat, especially pork. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Hu Quan laughed out loud. Originally, Hu Quan was still a little sleepy, but now he was immediately awake. "Ha ha ha. I've already reported it. After some time, those old fellows from the Spirit Craftsman Association will come back and hold a ceremony for me." Hu Quan was very excited when he said this. This made the face of a sturdy uncle with a scruffy beard smile, like a fragrant chrysanthemum. Hu Quan now had the mentality of a winner in life. Hu Quan was only short of a high-quality bronze fei to become a Class 5 spirit craftsman. What else could be more comforting than realizing one's ultimate goal in middle age? Lin Yuan looked at Hu Quan's excited expression and said, "That's right. Uncle Hu, looks like you'll have to make a trip to the Spirit Craftsman Chamber of Commerce tomorrow." Hu Quan was a little confused by Lin Yuan's words and did not understand what he meant at all. Just as Hu Quan was about to ask, he heard Lin Yuan speak again. "I've got the wood weaving house centipede that Uncle Hu told you about before." When Hu Quan heard that, his face was full of surprise, and his eyes lit up. His entire body was filled with anticipation. When Listen saw Hu Quan's expression, he knew that the wood weaving house centipede would not be of low quality. Listen, who was listening to the conversation between Lin Yuan and Hu Quan, heard the Spirit Craftsman Association's ritual. He knew that this uncle with a sloppy beard was a Spirit Craftsman Grandmaster who was about to become a Class 5 Spirit Craftsman. For a Spirit Craftsman Grandmaster to look forward to the wood weaving house centipede, it had to be at least a bronze/flawless wood weaving house centipede. Listen thought of Lin Yuan's means again and thought, it's the wood weaving house centipede that made this uncle with a sloppy beard look forward to it so much. Could it be an epic wood weaving house centipede? He waved his hand and summoned the bronze/legend wood-weaving house centipede from the spirit lock spatial zone. A 30-centimeter long, dark green insect species, Fey appeared on the completely jade-textured table. The wood-weaving house centipede that Lin Yuan had chosen was very lively and active. Therefore, when it was summoned, it started to hide with Lin Yuan and the others on the completely jade-textured table. He held the bronze X/legend wood-weaving house centipede in his hand. Otherwise, he would really be afraid that this little thing would take a bite of the completely jade-textured table. Listen only saw this 30-centimeter long dark green insect species, Fey, for a moment, and his eyes were completely attracted to it. Listen's mind was filled with the thought that Lin Yuan had actually taken out a bronze/legend Fey. Listen didn't expect that he would be lucky enough to see something that only existed in legends. It was something that would only appear when a pinnacle class 4 creation master was overflowing with luck. It was just that this kind of situation was too rare. In a sense, this bronze/legend Fey was equivalent to a class 5 creation master's privilege. A bronze/legend Fey was something that even pinnacle king class experts could only dream of. Now Lin Yuan had casually summoned it. This made Listen understand that he had completely underestimated the foundation of this sunny youth in front of him. At that moment, Hu Quan suddenly exclaimed, "Ah!" His voice was full of obsession and surprise. "Oh my god! This bronze/legend wood-weaving house centipede's silk sac actually split." Lin Yuan nodded and said, "That's right. Uncle Hu's luck is really good." Hu Quan's originally ecstatic grin stretched all the way to his ears. However, after hearing Lin Yuan's words, the corners of his mouth that reached his ears could not help but twitch, and Hu Quan's jaw almost turned over. If this wood-weaving house centipede had not been given to him by Lin Yuan, Hu Quan would have asked Lin Yuan righteously if this was something a human would say. "Don't you know if my luck is good, or if you gave it to me well?" In fact, in addition to Hu Quan's surging emotions because of happiness, Listen's emotions were also surging. Listen had always felt that he was very lucky to be able to rely on a big tree. However, he now found that his back was not leaning on a big tree at all, but a deep forest with no visible borders. Listen was a smart and relatively deep person. He had always had a clear understanding of himself and knew where his talent was. Listen had always thought that he was good at communicating with others. However, such a talent could only be displayed to the fullest with strong support from the rear. The stronger the support from the rear, the better Listen's ability to deal with the outside world could be displayed. Now he had a backer who could take out a bronze/legend Fey. Listen felt that he could finally put his talents to good use. Hu Quan took the bronze/legend wood-weaving house centipede from Lin Yuan and carefully observed its split silk sac. After looking at it for a long time, Hu Quan carefully stored the bronze/legend wood-weaving house centipede's silk sac into his diamond Fey storage box. Then he laughed and said to Lin Yuan, "I can't thank you enough. Lin Yuan, I'll go contract this wood-weaving house centipede in a while. After I become a class 5 spirit craftsman. No matter what you want me to do, just say the word. My liver is good," Lin Yuan said with a smile. "Okay, I really have a lot of things to trouble Uncle Hu at that time." Listen had been listening to Lin Yuan and Hu Quan's conversation. Observing people's words and body language was his most basic instinct. Listen had always thought that the person Lin Yuan called Uncle Hu was Lin Yuan's elder, but he did not expect him to have a similar status to him. Even if his status was higher than his, there was not much difference in nature. This discovery made Listen think of the bronze/legend wood-weaving house centipede that Lin Yuan had casually given out. This made Listen have to re-evaluate Lin Yuan's foundation for the third time since he entered the house. Although Listen thought a lot, he also wanted to understand a little more about Lin Yuan. After all, he would have to live under Lin Yuan's hands for the rest of his life. Hu Quan was going to return to his room to contract the bronze/legend wood-weaving house centipede. Then, he would let it fuse with the willpower rune he had comprehended into a fantasy breed Fey. Hu Quan suddenly thought of something and said, "Lin Yuan, do you not have a flying mount ready yet?" "Lin Yuan, do you still not have a flying mount ready?" Baidu read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 369. It had been some time since Huquan arrived at the mansion. However, during this time, he found that Lin Yuan mostly used his cell phone to book flying fays. It seemed that Lin Yuan did not have a flying fay yet. After hearing Huquan's words, Lin Yuan touched the back of his head and said, "Uncle Hu, I really don't have a flying fay ready to go out." After hearing Huquan's words, Lin Yuan touched the back of his head and said, "Uncle Hu, I really don't have a flying fay ready to go out." The little gray fellow in Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone was a crane species fay. Even though most crane species fays were good at flying, not all of them could fly. For example, the crane species ostrich fays were not good at flying. They could only fly a few dozen meters away when flapping their wings. However, their movements were abnormally fast and had extraordinary strength. Their claws could easily grab and pierce through metal spiritual materials that were higher than their own grade. That little gray fellow's genetic model had yet to fully appear. Lin Yuan could not be sure if this little gray fellow was good at flying. At that time, Lin Yuan had decided to raise this gray little fellow, but he had not decided to use it as a flying mount. When Huquan heard Lin Yuan's words, his eyes immediately lit up. "Lin Yuan, when I contract the bronze/legend wood weaving house centipede and let it become a fantasy breed, I'm confident I can build a fey carriage made mainly of jade-textured wood." When Huquan said this, he rubbed his hands and chuckled. He obviously wanted to use the completely jade-textured wood to make a big item. When Huquan saw Lin Yuan's thoughtful expression, he continued to speak. "With the fantasy breed wood weaving house centipede split spinnerets, I can use jade-textured wood to create all kinds of precise machinery. Mixed with some high-grade metals, the fey carriage can have very strong defense, and the interior can be very comfortable." Upon hearing Huquan's words, Lin Yuan nodded in agreement. Lin Yuan felt that Huquan's suggestion was very good. As long as Lin Yuan was not in a hurry, he did not want to experience the feeling of sitting on the divine travel black swallow's buttocks. After sitting for a long time, it felt like 30 wet nurse Rome were poking your buttocks with needles. It was too painful. The fey carriage did not refer to the kind of carriage that could be driven by itself before the spirit chi awakening. Instead, it had to be pulled by a fey in front, a bit similar to the carriage in Lin Yuan's previous life. However, the fey carriage's carriage was much bigger than the carriages. Fey carriages could travel on land, water, and air depending on the fey pulling them. However, most of the fey carriages would choose flying-type fays with defensive abilities to pull the carriages. A fey carriage would generally have more than 3 flying-type fays pulling it. If every flying-type fey pulling the fey carriage had a defensive ability, then apart from the carriage's own defensive ability, it would be able to protect the carriage. These flying fays that were pulling the carriage could also effectively protect the carriage. Even if fey carriages had thousands of benefits, most spirit chi professionals wouldn't choose to forge one. After all, the resources required to create a fey carriage were just too much. Building a fey carriage was far less cost-effective than nurturing a flying fey for transportation. Therefore, fey carriages were something that only veteran factions with deep foundations would consider building. It was undeniable that the fey carriage wasn't just sturdy, but it also had great defensive capabilities. Furthermore, the interior of the carriage could be decorated to be exceptionally comfortable. Huquan had put forward such an opinion because he felt that Lin Yuan's foundation was enough to build a high-end fey carriage. After all, Lin Yuan's foundation could obtain a bronze/legend wood weaving house centipede in just 10 days. With such ability, it would be easy to build a high-end fey carriage. Huquan's proposal to build a fey carriage was actually to repay Lin Yuan. Creating a high-end fey carriage's carriage was not a small project. Even if Huquan, a Class 5 spirit craftsman, kept working like this, it would take at least more than 2 months to be able to use the craftsman spirit to carve a fey carriage's carriage. He wanted to find a Class 5 spirit craftsman to spend 2 months to build a fey carriage's carriage. This was not something that could be done with money. Even a veteran faction would have to promise enough benefits And they would also have to pay a favor. They even had to help a Class 5 spirit craftsman find some precious materials, as a reward, to be able to invite a Class 5 spirit craftsman. A new batch of completely jade-textured wood in Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone was about to mature. He could obtain 20 wooden planks of completely jade-textured wood in one go. These 20 wooden planks of completely jade-textured wood were more than enough to make the main bottom of a fey carriage. If Lin Yuan wanted to build a fey carriage, what he lacked was not the materials to build the fey carriage's carriage. What he lacked was the flying fey that pulled the carriage. Lin Yuan had always been different from ordinary creation masters. He could easily enhance bronze/epic fays, and even bronze/legend fays. However, he had no way of dealing with high-grade fays. Given Lin Yuan's current standard as a C-rank spirit chi professional, he could only enhance a gold fey at most, even if he used Morbius spirit chi condensation to condense crystals. At most, he could raise the fey's grade to platinum. However, as long as Lin Yuan was not crazy, he would never use spirit chi crystals to enhance the flying fey that pulled the fey carriage. Although he could condense one spirit chi crystal every 7 days or so, it was still a scarce resource for him. Lin Yuan still had to use the spirit chi crystals to increase his fey's strength. Secondly, even if he didn't need to increase his fey's strength, he wouldn't be able to do so. In that case, wouldn't it be better to use the spirit power crystals to enhance bronze/legend fays? Just as Lin Yuan was about to speak, clear laughter suddenly echoed from the mansion's entrance. When Lin Yuan heard this clear laughter, his eyes lit up because he already knew who it was. Lin Yuan said to Hu Quan, "Uncle Hu, put aside the fey carriage first. I don't have any flying fays that are suitable to pull the fey carriage yet." Then he turned and walked toward the door. Sure enough, when he turned around, he saw the mansion's entrance. A man who wore a silver robe almost all year round stood there. This man was Xian Yu. Lin Yuan said hurriedly, "Uncle Xian, why didn't you inform me that you were coming so late? I would have gone to the entrance of the manor to pick you up." Xian Yu looked at Lin Yuan with a clear smile and said, "It's not early winter. If I told you in advance that I was coming, you would have to go to the manor to pick me up. You would have to stand in the cold wind for nothing. Why don't I come in directly and bring you the things your master brought for you?" Xian Yu had heard the conversation between Hu Quan and Lin Yuan when he entered the mansion. When he heard that Lin Yuan did not have any flying fays that were suitable to pull the fey carriage, Xian Yu secretly remembered Lin Yuan's words. Mystic Moon secretly remembered Lin Yuan's words and planned to tell the Moon Empress after returning to the Radiant Moon Palace. He thought about how the Moon Empress was always in a daze in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace. He was thinking about what gift he should give his disciple, but could not think of anything suitable. Wasn't this a good opportunity now? Make up for yesterday's third update, end of this chapter. Chapter 370. This wasn't the first time Mystic Moon had visited Lin Yuan's residence. Even though Xian Yu wouldn't come here every few days, Xian Yu was a little worried. However, he would always come here once every half a month, so he was already very familiar with the place. However, Hu Quan had been sleeping during the day and working hard at night. In the past, Xian Yu would usually come over in the morning. Therefore, this was the first time Hu Quan had seen Mystic Moon with his own eyes. The 2 moon envoys of the Radiant Moon Palace were famous throughout the world. Emissary Tsongyue was in charge of external affairs, while Emissary Xianyue was in charge of internal affairs. That was why Mount Huayue's Tsongyue emissary's reputation was well known. But regarding the Black Moon envoys, those without strength and status knew very little. Only the Radiance Federation's top factions were qualified to know a thing or two. Therefore, Hu Quan did not recognize Xian Yu. However, when Hu Quan saw the silver robe, he seemed to vaguely recall a rumor. It was just that Hu Quan couldn't recall this rumor at the moment. On the other hand, Listen could tell that Mystic Moon and Lin Yuan had a close relationship. Lin Yuan had previously addressed Hu Quan as uncle Hu mainly because of Hu Quan's age, and it was a polite form of address. Now that Lin Yuan was addressing this silver-robed man as Uncle Mystic, even if they weren't related by blood, he was still an uncle on the level of family. Otherwise, this silver-robed man wouldn't have given Lin Yuan something on behalf of his master. Lin Yuan quickly picked up the teacup from the table and poured a cup of 3 treasures tea for Mystic Moon. Uncle Xian, have a cup of tea first. Mystic Moon took the teacup that Lin Yuan handed over and took a sniff before speaking in a clear voice. Little Yuan, there are plums in this 3 treasures tea. It smells good. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan chuckled and said, that's right. This was brewed by Wen Yu. She added the plums that Uncle Xian sent over last time. Xian Yu said as soon as she heard that Wen Yu was the one who made it. When you went out to train, Wen Yu and Kai Cha learned the way of tea for a few days. I heard from Kai Cha that Wen Yu learned it pretty well. Xian Yu's words were filled with praise for Wen Yu. Clearly, she thought very highly of Wen Yu. As the moon envoy of the Leaning Moon Mountain's Radiant Moon Palace, Mystic Moon was the Moon Empress envoy. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was the Radiant Moon Palace's chief steward. Wen Yu was just a small spirit attendant in the Radiant Moon Palace, so it was impossible for Xian Yu to take notice of her. Ever since Lin Yuan had chosen Wen Yu as his assistant, she had finally appeared in Mystic Moon's line of sight. Xian Yu also came into contact with Wen Yu. In the beginning, Mystic Moon had advocated for sending 2 spirit attendants to be Lin Yuan's assistants. After Lin Yuan went to wash the fruits, only Mystic Moon, Hu Quan, and Listen were left in the huge living room. Mystic Moon glanced at Hu Quan and Listen and said, let's sit together for a while. Hu Quan and Listen were a little reserved when they saw Mystic Moon. It was not just because Mystic Moon was Lin Yuan's uncle. It was also because of Mystic Moon's clear and noble bearing. This kind of bearing was simply too transcendent. It was simply not something that ordinary people could have. When Mystic Moon heard Hu Quan and Lin Yuan's conversation, he heard Hu Quan say that he was a Class 5 spirit craftsman. Therefore, when he looked at Hu Quan, he could not help but think highly of him. When Mystic Moon heard Hu Quan say that he wanted to build a fey carriage, he could not help but ask, what kind of materials do you think are suitable for the construction of the fey carriage? Hu Quan was a little surprised. Why would this silver-robed man in front of him ask him such a question? However, since he had been asked, Hu Quan answered truthfully, I think it's best to use completely jade-textured wood for the main body of the fey carriage, paired with some rare metals. After listening to Hu Quan's idea, Mystic Moon nodded with admiration. The combination of completely jade-textured wood and rare metals was indeed very suitable to make a fey carriage. It was not tacky, nor did it look very shabby. It was just a little worse than the coral stones shed from the suzerain gem coral. Then Mystic Moon asked again, then how many flying fays do you think are suitable to pull the fey carriage? Hu Quan thought for a moment and replied, actually, 3 flying fays are enough. Actually, 3 flying fays are enough. If the conditions allow it, it would be best to have 5. If the conditions don't allow it, 1 is actually not bad. Hu Quan was still thinking about making a fey carriage. On one hand, Hu Quan wanted to make this fey carriage because he was about to become a Class 5 spirit craftsman. He wanted to make an item that could represent his peak achievement after he became a Class 5 spirit craftsman. On the other hand, Hu Quan also wanted to repay Lin Yuan and contribute more to him. However, these words did not sound the same to Mystic Moon's ears. Mystic Moon almost thought that she had heard wrongly just now. Was this still the Class 5 spirit craftsman who had just said that he wanted to use completely jade-textured wood and rare metals to make a carriage? Mystic Moon really wanted to pry open Hu Quan's head and take a look inside. How poor and shabby had he been in the first half of his life? Only then could a Class 5 spirit craftsman say that a flying fey could pull a fey carriage. If only 1 flying fey was used to pull a fey carriage, what was the point of the fey carriage? Wasn't such a fey carriage just an urn that could not move a few hundred meters in the sky? Today's first chapter, end of this chapter. Chapter 371. In Mystic Moon's opinion, Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress disciple. There had to be at least 9 fays used to pull the fey carriage. If Lin Yuan liked more fays, it wouldn't be too much to ask for 12. Using multiple flying fays to pull the carriage might not increase the carriage's flying speed. However, if these flying fays that were pulling the chariot had defensive abilities, they would not be able to escape. The more flying fays there were, the safer the carriage could be. Mystic Moon looked at Huquan's expression. She realized that Huquan's expression was actually quite serious. Mystic Moon cleared her throat and asked, "Then, how many fays do you think are more suitable?" Mystic Moon's question piqued Huquan's interest. Huquan replied without thinking, "If you want to show style, then the higher and rarer the fae the better. If you want to show style, it is naturally better to use the rarer and higher grade fays to pull the chariot. There is no need to be so particular about the species of fays." Upon hearing Huquan's words, Mystic Moon had no intention of continuing to communicate with Huquan. If the fae pulling the carriage wanted to show its foundation, then it had to make the flying fays look uniform when flying. Otherwise, if there were as many flying fays pulling the carriage as there were different kinds of flying fays, wouldn't it be a shameless meeting and a mess? Therefore, it was best to only have one kind of fae pulling the carriage. This could ensure that the same kind of fae had the same flying speed. On the other hand, it could also ensure that there would be no friction between the same kind of high-grade fays during flight. It was impossible for the fae carriage's owner to contract all the fays that were pulling the carriage. Since there were no contracted fays, the owner's control would be much weaker. Weak control in addition, if there were some natural enemies between the two kinds of fays. If there were friction between the two kinds of fays in the sky, it would not cause any serious consequences, even if they had been trained by creation masters. However, it was also very troublesome to appease the fae that had friction. Moreover, as long as a precious fae was pulling the carriage, it could show style. Let's get a high-grade flying turtle fae and a high-grade flying snake fae, and put them together. What if you pretend to be a black tortoise in the sky? You're still telling others that I should give your fae carriage 10 points? It was simply too unsophisticated. After hearing Huquan's words, Mystic Moon was even more determined to tell the Moon Empress about the lack of suitable flying fays for the fae carriage. At the same time, Mystic Moon was a little worried. If Lin Yuan were to be together with such a Class 5 spirit craftsman, would he be brought down by such a person? This was indeed a question worth pondering. Huquan was still immersed in the beautiful thought of building a fae carriage. However, he did not know that Xian Yu had already labeled him as a country bumpkin. In fact, if Huquan knew about it, he would definitely cry out in injustice. Huquan was just from a grassroots background, yet he dared to say that he would use completely jade-textured wood and rare metals to build the main body of the fae carriage. It was because Huquan knew that Lin Yuan had these spiritual ingredients. If it wasn't for the fact that he had broadened his horizons during this period of time with Lin Yuan, he wouldn't have been able to do so. Huquan had never dared to think about something like a fae carriage. Huquan was not to be blamed. If Huquan really became a Class 5 spirit craftsman, after Huquan's status and level increased, his horizons naturally increased as well. Mystic Moon turned to look at Listen and chatted with him for a while. Xian Yu keenly discovered that Listen's talent in diplomacy didn't lose to Wen Yu's talent in strategy. In this way, Lin Yuan actually had a helper who could manage both internal and external matters, just like him and Song Yu, who were beside the Moon Empress. If Cold Moon and Listen's external talents were likened to support-type spirit chi professionals. Thus, Cold Moon's method of support was to kill everything that could threaten her team. Using this kind of hardcore method to support, Listening was equivalent to turning all enemies hostile to his team into his own people. He was using this soft-core method to assist. There were pros and cons to this type of support. However, Listen was still young and had time to grow. After Lin Yuan washed the fruits, he cut them into pieces that were suitable for eating. Then, he placed a fruit platter and placed a few fruit forks on it before bringing it out. After chatting with Mystic Moon for a while, Mystic Moon left. Only Lin Yuan, Listen, and Huquan were left in the living room. Lin Yuan said with a serious expression, "Listen, your listening Heron Chamber of Commerce is still operating as usual." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen nodded and replied seriously, "Young master, I brought 11 source-type items this time. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, and I have pledged allegiance to you. So these source-type items are yours, young master. Lin Yuan said with a wave of his hand. I'll still take 6 source-type items according to the previous remuneration. The remaining 5 source-type items will be the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's current resources. Do you want the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to maintain its current state? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen immediately expressed his stance. No, I want the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to develop into a big chamber of commerce. Upon hearing Listen's words, Lin Yuan shook his head. Listen's diplomatic talents were outstanding. However, since Listen had been staying in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, the layout was still a little too small. Listen needed some guidance to understand that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce could become more than just a large chamber of commerce. Or rather, Listen shouldn't just focus on the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce itself. Since you and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce have submitted to me, I will inject the first resource into the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce and provide you with the same goods. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen knew that Lin Yuan had not finished speaking. At the same time, he was curious about what exactly the goods that Lin Yuan was talking about were. At that moment, Lin Yuan turned to look at Hu Quan. Uncle Hu, after you become a Class 5 spirit craftsman, go find a construction team and let them build the guild club's base in the open space behind the manor. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Hu Quan replied, Don't worry, Lin Yuan. After I become a Class 5 spirit craftsman, as long as I say the word, there will be construction teams rushing to build the guild club's base for us. At that moment, Hu Quan heard Lin Yuan say, Don't worry, Lin Yuan. Uncle Hu, the powder of the completely jade-textured wood that we've collected previously can now be used. As soon as Hu Quan heard Lin Yuan's words, he understood what he meant. Completely jade-textured wood was so rare that only people with some foundation could not afford it at all. Therefore, those ornaments mixed with completely jade-textured wood powder and utensils made of completely jade-textured wood powder as glaze. They became luxuries sought after by those who did not have a deep foundation in the Radiance Federation. Any one of them could be sold for a high price of nearly 10,000 Radiance dollars. In Hu Quan's opinion, the resources that Lin Yuan had said he would inject into the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce should be these objects made of completely jade-textured wood powder. Hu Quan could not help but sigh. In this return from faraway manor, it seemed that everything was different from the outside world. Things that were hard to find in the outside world were treated as garbage in this return from faraway manor, and could only gather dust in the warehouse. Listen was a smart person. From the conversation between Lin Yuan and Hu Quan, he knew what resources Lin Yuan was going to inject into him. Yesterday's second update, end of this chapter. Chapter 372. Then Listen fell into ecstasy. In fact, just this batch of goods alone was enough for the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to expand the Star Web online resources it had previously controlled by more than 5-fold. At the same time, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's offline resources could also make a qualitative leap. This made Listen see the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's bright future. To Listen, he had Lin Yuan as his backing. He did not have to worry about other factions plotting against him and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce in the future. It was another matter that Lin Yuan was willing to invest in him and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Listen did not expect that he had just led the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to submit to Lin Yuan, to be able to receive such preferential treatment. Listen had already sworn with the willpower rune to become Lin Yuan's man, and could not rebel. However, Listen was really helpless when he swore. But now Listen had a sense of belonging. At the same time, Listen could not help but sigh inwardly. This feeling of having a big tree to lean on was really fucking awesome. Lin Yuan looked at the expression on Listen's face and smiled. Listen, do you think the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce can only develop into a large chamber of commerce? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen hurriedly replied excitedly. I feel that if objects made of completely jade-textured wood powder are deployed by the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, I'm confident in developing the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce into a rising force. Listen had already started to calculate in his heart how to mix these objects made of completely jade-textured wood powder. This kind of resource, which was in short supply in the market, was a good thing for Listen to make money and consolidate his connections. With such a good thing, he had to use it where it mattered most. At the same time, Listen also knew that Lin Yuan would not give him much of such a good thing. But as long as there was a small number of objects made of completely jade-textured wood powder, they would be able to absorb it. Listen was confident that he could bring the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to a higher level. Upon hearing Listen's words, Lin Yuan shook his head again. Lin Yuan did not expect Listen to still not jump out of the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's framework. Apart from the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, how many other assets do you think you can coordinate? Lin Yuan's words were like a heavy hammer that knocked on Listen's heart. This heavy sentence directly broke the chain binding Listen's heart, causing the invisible chain to break inch by inch. It also released the beast in Listen's heart. Two flames of ambition seemed to ignite in Listen's eyes. Listen clenched his fists under the table until they turned white, but he pretended to be calm on the surface. I can coordinate as many as there are. Lin Yuan laughed and said, "That's right. Alright, since you can coordinate all the assets you have, then first develop the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce into an emerging force for me to see." Lin Yuan had only taken a fancy to Listen's talent, and the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's function as a chamber of commerce. With the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, he only needed to take the basic supplies he usually needed from it. This would save him a lot of trouble. On the other hand, he no longer needed to go through Star Web for the basic resources he needed for his development. This was because Lin Yuan's faction now had the Chamber of Commerce's functions. In a sense, he had also become a channel for basic supplies. This made it extremely convenient for Lin Yuan's faction's development in the future. However, Lin Yuan had taken a fancy to Listen's talent. In that case, Listen had to be able to bring sufficient benefits to Lin Yuan. Otherwise, his resources would be wasted. If that really happened, it would prove that it was a mistake for Lin Yuan to accept Listen and the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's allegiance. The flames of ambition in Listen's eyes burned more and more fiercely. Lin Yuan's words opened up the ambition that had been locked in Listen's heart because of the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Now that this ambition was completely released, Lin Yuan could feel the fighting spirit brought by Listen's ambition. Lin Yuan was very approving of Listen's ambition. The more Listen's ambition burned, the better it would be for Lin Yuan. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was just the first dust under Lin Yuan's private faction, Sky City. Since this wisp of dust belonged to Sky City, why should it start absorbing more dust from this wisp of dust? To set off a monstrous dust storm. At that moment, Listen said word by word in an extremely serious tone. "Young master, I'll do it within a year." Lin Yuan shook his head and said, "A year is too long. A year is too long. I think half a year is enough." After saying that, Lin Yuan ignored Listen, who was obviously a little flustered when he heard his words, and looked at Hu Quan. "Uncle Hu, if you find someone to do the work of making objects with completely jade-textured wood, how many objects can be produced every day?" Hu Quan pondered for a moment and said, "If I were to find someone to do it, I think it would be better to make a high-end product. Get a Class 3 spirit craftsman to do it. With your reserves of completely jade-textured wood fragments, you won't be able to finish them. Therefore, if we find 23-star spirit craftsmen, we will be able to make 200 items a day." Lin Yuan naturally would not let Hu Quan use the fragments of completely jade-textured wood to create objects that were mixed with completely jade-textured wood. In that case, it would be overkill for Hu Quan. He could look for a grade 3 spirit craftsman to help solve it. After hearing Hu Quan's words, Listen's previous worry and panic completely disappeared. If there were 200 objects made of completely jade-textured wood powder in a single day, that would be 6,000 pieces in a month. 6,000 objects of various sizes, made from completely jade-textured wood powder. Based on the scarcity of the market, It wouldn't be a problem to sell it for 60 million radiance dollars. Half a year was a total of 6 months, which was 360 million radiance dollars. He had taken Lin Yuan's 360 million radiance dollars. If they couldn't develop the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce into a rising force, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce wouldn't be able to do so. Listen felt that he was too useless. Listen calculated carefully. If the resources were used properly, in that case, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce would have the capital to attack a rising faction within 3 months. With resources and a lot of radiance dollars, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce could completely take the path of a veteran faction. They would use resources to attract high-ranked spirit chi professionals to work for the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yuan looked at Listen again and asked, "I'll give you half a year, is that enough?" Listen hurriedly said, "Young master, I am confident that I can complete the task you have given me within 4 months." After giving some instructions, Listen left the mansion. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had already moved to the royal capital, and Listen still had many things to do. Hu Quan had already returned to his room to contract the Bronze/Legend Wood Weaving House Centipede. He had to hurry and fuse the Bronze/Legend Wood Weaving House Centipede with his willpower rune. Make the Wood Weaving House Centipede a fantasy breed Fae. The moment the Wood Weaving House Centipede became a fantasy breed Fae, Hu Quan had transformed into a true Class 5 spirit craftsman. Lin Yuan was the only one left in the hall. Lin Yuan was carrying Genius back to his room. Suddenly his brows furrowed. He felt that red thorn, which had been in the leaf-shaped diamond Fae storage box, had eaten some dimensional life form. It had actually undergone a certain degree of mutation. Third update yesterday asking for tickets, end of this chapter. Chapter 373. After Lin Yuan felt Red Thorn's spiritual feedback, he immediately cast his gaze on the leaf-shaped diamond Fae storage box in front of his chest. He used his spiritual energy to sense the situation in the leaf-shaped diamond Fae storage box. He saw Red Thorn squeaking and digesting the dimensional lifeform's flesh in the Fae storage box. The mouth of Relinquish trembled like a furnace as it operated rapidly. At the same time, there was a roar when the dimensional lifeform's flesh melted. The tongue of Relinquish secreted special acids for different dimensional lifeforms' flesh in the mouth of Relinquish. It ensured that the flesh-devouring furnace, the mouth of Relinquish, would never be overloaded. The acid corrosion queen bee lay comfortably on the huge flesh-shaped flower above the mouth of Relinquish. From time to time, it would transport the acid-swallowing larvae it had produced through its gold ability from the hive it had built in the mouth of Relinquish. Then, the acid corrosion queen bee flew up and carried the acid-swallowing larvae into the mouth of Relinquish's open mouth, like it was offering a treasure. It was like a servant offering a treasure to the queen. However, the queen received the treasure without any reaction and did not show the slightest response. However, the acid corrosion queen bee was enjoying it and even danced on the mouth of Relinquish's flesh-shaped flower. Lin Yuan could not help but hold his forehead. Ever since the acid corrosion queen bee had lived in the big house, it had been licking Red Thorn to the point that Lin Yuan could not stand it anymore. Lin Yuan roughly checked Red Thorn's appearance in the spirit lock spatial zone. He found that there was not much change in Red Thorn's appearance. Lin Yuan looked at the huge living room of his mansion and summoned Red Thorn from the leaf-shaped diamond Fae storage box. The summoned Red Thorn was like a huge pumpkin-shaped sphere that was demonic, ferocious, and beautiful. However, this huge pumpkin-shaped sphere had dozens of mouths of Relinquish. The tongue of Relinquish stirred in the mouth of Relinquish, helping the mouth of Relinquish digest the remaining food. The 60 awe-inspiring eyes of Relinquish blinked frequently, and a strange luster appeared on the surface every time they blinked. The 12 useless red flowers that grew out of Red Thorn's digestive cavity were nearly 1 meter in size. They could not be any more beautiful. When Lin Yuan summoned Red Thorn, he focused his attention on the massive flower that had a diameter of 1 meter. Lin Yuan immediately saw where exactly Red Thorn's appearance had changed. Previously, the 12 huge red flowers with a diameter of 1 meter were completely useless. The only value of these flowers was to increase red thorn's appearance. At the same time, red thorn could also emit sounds like a musical instrument based on the 12 flowers. But now, in the middle of these 12 large red flowers that were nearly a meter in diameter, there were many filamentous membranes growing out of the layers of petals. It looked as if this huge red flower was made up of nearly 100 dark red gills. At that moment, Lin Yuan finally knew why red thorn had suddenly comprehended the ability to breathe underwater. From a plant-type source-type life form that could only grow on land, it became an amphibious source-type life form. The appearance of the 12 huge red flowers that were nearly a meter in diameter was the reason why red thorn could survive underwater. Lin Yuan had already checked the leaf-shaped diamond phase storage box's situation. He discovered the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh in the leaf-shaped diamond phase storage box. The flesh and blood of the gold water world dimensional lifeforms had all disappeared. Coupled with the transformation of red thorn's 12 huge flowers, it was obvious that red thorn had eaten those water world dimensional creatures. It was a mutation that occurred after digesting the flesh and blood of the gold water world dimensional lifeforms. At that moment, Morbius' voice rang out in his mind. Lin Yuan, it's great news that red thorn can mutate and gain the ability to breathe underwater. Lin Yuan nodded, as he was also very surprised by red thorn's mutation. Lin Yuan had never had a fae that could fight in the water. Although the spirit-drawing ichthyosaur Blackie was an aquatic fae, it didn't look like an aquatic fae. However, as a support-type aquatic fae that could replenish spiritual power, the spirit-drawing ichthyosaur, Blackie, did not possess combat ability. However, when red thorn had completely mutated into an amphibious creature, it was extremely dangerous. In that case, red thorn would be able to unleash the same strength underwater as it was on land. By spreading the sea of flowers at the bottom of the water, red thorn could indirectly control a part of the water. This mutation directly increased red thorn's strategic significance by a huge margin. At the same time, he was also secretly shocked by the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh. Just like the flesh of the alien insect dimensional lifeforms and abyss dimensional lifeforms that red thorn had previously devoured. One increased the acidity of red thorn's body, while the other increased red thorn's fire resistance and withering characteristics. However, the flesh and blood of the water world dimensional lifeforms directly opened up a new combat field for red thorn. Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan replied, "It's a pity that the gold water world dimensional lifeform's flesh in the leaf-shaped phase storage box is too little." As he spoke, he used his hand to touch red thorn, whose petals had already turned into gill-shaped flowers. Lin Yuan carefully examined it. Lin Yuan realized that the gill-like petals were only on the outer layer of the huge flower. Many of the petals in the inner layer were still the same as before. It was obvious that red thorn's ability to breathe underwater hadn't been completely mutated. Red thorn still needed to devour more gold water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh. After Lin Yuan summoned red thorn, it immediately weaved the thornless vine into a rattan chair. Red thorn controlled the vines to send the rattan chair under Lin Yuan's butt. He even shook the rattan chair twice, indicating for Lin Yuan to sit down quickly. At the same time, the 12 huge flowers blew at the same time. But this time, Lin Yuan was surprised to find that the sound that red thorn blew with the flowers was actually somewhat similar to his name. Then, Lin Yuan felt red thorn transmit a proud emotion to him. It was like a 7 or 8-year-old little girl who had scored 100 points on a test and was waiting for her father to praise her. Lin Yuan was very happy that red thorn could actually make the sound of his name through this huge flower that had gill-like petals. This meant that red thorn already had the ability to learn languages. With this kind of sign of language learning ability, as long as someone carefully taught it, after a period of time, red thorn would be able to communicate with Lin Yuan directly like genius. Among all of Lin Yuan's fays, Morbius was undoubtedly the most intelligent, followed by genius. Between Chimey and red thorn, Chimey's intelligence should be higher. However, Chimey still couldn't speak yet. This was because Chimey's singing ability was very similar to a parrot's ability to learn to speak. Chimey used the songstress bird's talent to quickly remember a melody and then sing it after memorizing it. However, Lin Yuan believed that as long as Chimey's quality and grade were improved, it wouldn't be long before Chimey could speak directly. As a plant-type source-type life form, Red Thorn already had such high intelligence when it was at Silver/Fantasy Eye. Thinking about it, it must be related to Endless Summer's Enlightenment Willpower Rune. On the other hand, in Lin Yuan's opinion, it should be related to the way Red Thorn obtained energy. Red Thorn grew by absorbing a huge amount of flesh and blood energy. This huge amount of flesh and blood energy could completely promote the development of Red Thorn's intelligence. This was somewhat similar to the history of human development. Human civilization only began to develop after humans began to eat meat and changed from herbivores to omnivores. In a sense, eating meat was power. Of course, Lin Yuan added another sentence in his heart. If you eat meat, it's best to eat pork. And it must be Uncle Lee's blackback mountain boar meat. Sensing Red Thorn's urgent need for praise, Lin Yuan sat on the chair weaved by Red Thorn's vines and praised Red Thorn generously. Red Thorn is awesome. Red Thorn knows how to call my name so quickly. Red Thorn is the smartest. Treating a fae like Red Thorn, which had the intelligence of a 7-year-old child, was actually no different from treating a 7-year-old human child. Make up for yesterday's first update. End of this chapter. Chapter 374. When Red Thorn was displaying its merits, he had to constantly encourage and affirm it. This was because encouragement would allow Red Thorn to be more motivated when it learned to speak in the future. When Red Thorn heard Lin Yuan's praise, its 12-meter-long flowers happily stretched to a diameter of 1.2 meters. Lin Yuan sensed Red Thorn's happy mood and said, "Red Thorn, can you learn how to read from me in the future? If you learn how to read, you will be able to communicate with me like how Genius communicates with me in the future." At this moment, the 12 huge flowers of Red Thorn actually trembled together. It was obvious that Red Thorn was using its own method to express that it accepted Lin Yuan's suggestion and was very interested in it. Lin Yuan praised Red Thorn once again. He still had to affirm Red Thorn's willingness to learn in time. At that moment, Genius jumped from Lin Yuan's arms to one of Red Thorn's large flowers. "Red Thorn, I can teach you how to read every day." Red Thorn and Genius had an extremely good relationship. When Red Thorn heard Genius's words, it turned its body and used the large flowers to play with Genius. Morbius said in Lin Yuan's mind, "Spirit crystals don't work on Red Thorn." Lin Yuan, spirit chi crystals are ineffective against Red Thorn. If we can let Red Thorn grow, we will be able to explore the sea and obtain some rare resources from the sea. Lin Yuan sensed that Red Thorn was now a Silver/Fantasy breed. I have to test the rhizome produced by Red Thorn to see if it can survive underwater. If it's possible, it's not impossible to develop the current shallow sea. Lin Yuan carried Genius down from the large flower and placed it on the water rhinoceros leather sofa. "Genius, wait for me here. When I return, I will bring you upstairs to sleep." Genius meowed and rubbed its small head against Lin Yuan's hand. Lin Yuan rubbed Genius's head and stored Red Thorn in the diamond face storage box. He walked out of the mansion's entrance and walked toward the manor's artificial lake. On the way to the artificial lake, Lin Yuan took out a small piece of completely jade-textured wood from the diamond face storage box. The completely jade-textured wood emitted a gentle light in Lin Yuan's hand. It directly illuminated a 3-meter radius around Lin Yuan. The light of this completely jade-textured wood was very gentle, making people feel very comfortable. The light emitted by the completely jade-textured wood blended with the bright moonlight in the sky. At this moment, the cold moonlight of the early winter also carried a bit of a refreshing taste. The man-made lake in the manor was 5 meters deep. When you had nurtured many decorative aquatic fays in this rather large artificial lake, all kinds of fish were swimming in groups in the artificial lake. He walked to the artificial lake and summoned Red Thorn at the shore of the artificial lake. Then, he asked Red Thorn to enter the water according to his situation. Although Lin Yuan could sense that Red Thorn's mutation had given it the ability to breathe underwater, Lin Yuan couldn't help but feel that Red Thorn's mutation had given it the ability to breathe underwater. However, Red Thorn had not completely mutated. Therefore, Lin Yuan was afraid that Red Thorn would not be able to adapt to this 5-meter-deep artificial lake. It was also Red Thorn's first time encountering water. Perhaps because it had eaten the flesh of the water world dimensional life forms, Red Thorn wasn't afraid of water. Red Thorn directly jumped into the 5-meter-deep artificial lake. Lin Yuan immediately looked nervously at Red Thorn, which had sunk to the bottom of the lake. Immediately after, Lin Yuan discovered that Red Thorn, which had sunk to the bottom of the lake, had its 12 massive flowers fully opened. The gill-shaped petals swayed in the water, making Red Thorn very comfortable in the water. At this moment, Lin Yuan's clothes were completely drenched by the splash of water when Red Thorn jumped into the artificial lake. Lin Yuan simply jumped into the artificial lake and dived to the bottom of the 5-meter-deep artificial lake. Then he communicated with Red Thorn telepathically. He asked Red Thorn to summon a few ramets, regardless of whether it was the nibbling vine-like ramets or the small spore-shaped ramets. Red Thorn summoned a few ramets. At the beginning, the nibbling vine-like ramets twisted uncomfortably in the water. After a period of time, Red Thorn channeled energy to the nibbling vine-like ramets. The nibbling vine-like ramets were not as nimble as they were on land. As for the small spore-shaped ramets, they lost the ability to release spores after a while. It was obvious that Red Thorn's underwater breathing ability had not been passed on to the ramets. Although it seemed that Red Thorn could freely survive underwater, the artificial lake was only 5 meters deep. Lin Yuan was still unable to measure the limit of Red Thorn's underwater survival. However, if there was a large amount of gold water world dimensional lifeforms flesh for Red Thorn to devour, when Red Thorn's 12 massive flowers and stamens became gill-shaped, at that time, Red Thorn's underwater breathing ability could be said to have completely mutated. Lin Yuan estimated that at that time, regardless of whether Red Thorn was nibbling vine-like ramets or small spore-shaped ramets, it should be able to inherit the underwater breathing ability from Red Thorn. Therefore, the next most important thing was for Lin Yuan to obtain the flesh of gold water world dimensional lifeforms. After Lin Yuan came out of the artificial lake, Red Thorn, who was breathing freely at the bottom of the 5-meter-deep artificial lake, returned to the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box. He allowed Red Thorn to continue devouring the dimensional lifeform's flesh and energy to increase its grade and quality. Then, Lin Yuan shook off the water stains on his body and walked into the mansion. It was currently early winter in the royal capital, and the temperature in the middle of the night had already reached below zero. As Lin Yuan's body was emitting heat, his wet clothes didn't freeze when the cold wind of the early winter night blew. However, when the cold wind blew, it quickly took away the heat in Lin Yuan's body. It made Lin Yuan feel cool and refreshing. Fortunately, Lin Yuan had used the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to wash the impurities in his body and improve his gene template. Therefore, Lin Yuan's resistance was extremely high. In addition, Lin Yuan was already a C-rank spirit chi professional. Illnesses like colds and fevers were already far away from Lin Yuan. After returning to the mansion, Lin Yuan saw that Genius had already fallen asleep on the water rhinoceros skin sofa. Genius was lying on the water rhinoceros skin sofa, and its small head was still looking in the direction of the door. It was obviously waiting for Lin Yuan to return. However, as it waited, Genius fell asleep. Lin Yuan looked at his wet clothes and felt the temperature of his hands. Lin Yuan used his mouth to blow a few breaths and realized that his hands were still cold. Lin Yuan was afraid that his hands were too cold and would wake Genius up when he hugged it. Thus, Lin Yuan returned to his room and took a hot shower. After changing into clean clothes, Lin Yuan went downstairs and gently carried Genius back to his room. After placing Genius on the bed, Lin Yuan carefully covered Genius with a small blanket. Then Lin Yuan directly entered Star Web. Second update for yesterday, end of chapter. Chapter 375. Lin Yuan logged onto Star Web this time to help Red Thorn buy some gold water world dimensional lifeforms flesh. In fact, Lin Yuan could tell from the amount of dimensional lifeforms flesh that his master, the Moon Empress, had placed in the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box. The water world dimensional lifeforms flesh was scarce. When Lin Yuan had gotten the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box, he had been very excited. Whether it was the alien insect dimensional rift, the abyss dimensional rift, the swamp dimensional rift, or the underground dimensional rift. In these 4-dimensional rifts that had opened on land, almost every dimensional lifeform's flesh had the same amount. However, if one really wanted to compare, the alien insect dimensional lifeform's flesh was slightly more. However, compared to the flesh of these 4-dimensional rifts that had opened on land, there were only over 300 of them. Among them, there were over 200 gold water world dimensional lifeforms flesh, and nearly 80 platinum water world dimensional lifeforms flesh. Among them, there were over 200 gold water world dimensional lifeforms flesh, and nearly 80 platinum water world dimensional lifeforms flesh. As for the more than 200 gold water world dimensional creatures' flesh, they had been completely digested by Red Thorn during this period of time. The remaining 80 platinum water world dimensional lifeforms flesh were still stored in the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box. Given Red Thorn's current grade, it still could not digest the platinum water world dimensional lifeforms flesh and blood. If it forcefully devoured them, it would not only cause a waste of the platinum water world dimensional lifeforms flesh and blood energy. At the same time, it would also cause a great burden on Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish. Therefore, the remaining 80 platinum water world dimensional lifeforms flesh were something that Red Thorn could only look at but not eat. Compared to the other 4-dimensional rifts that had opened on land, the water world dimensional rift only opened in the sea. The sea had always been a paradise for marine phase. Even in the coastal waters, human spirit chi professionals were relatively rare. The water world dimensional rifts opened in the sea. The water world dimensional lifeforms that gushed out of the dimensional rifts would soon be hunted by marine phase. Therefore, the probability of human spirit chi professionals finding the water world dimensional rifts in the coastal waters was extremely small. After Lin Yuan logged on Star Web, he first went to his Purchase with No Loss store to take a look. He found that a few new people had joined his Purchase with No Loss store's fan club. It should be the creation master or spirit chi professional that had purchased the flower brocade pearls during the blind trade. Lin Yuan did not care about his Purchase with No Loss store's fan club. This time, Lin Yuan displayed 10 flower brocade pearls in his Purchase with No Loss store again, and he still used the blind trade method to sell them. After the previous blind trade for the silver flood dragon species phase essence blood, he had learned his lesson. This time, Lin Yuan's blind trade was the same as the first time. In exchange for a strange flame, the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and Chimey absorbed the 130 mid-grade strange flames, sealed in the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's leaves. More than half of it had already been absorbed. Lin Yuan could clearly sense a trace of transformation in Chimey's bloodline. He planned to exchange for more strange flames, so that Chimey could reach Fantasy 3 before he ran for the Radiance 100 sequence. At that time, the bloodline hidden in Chimey's body would be directly stimulated. Chimey would transform from a twilight starbird into a new fae. He could then take the spirit chi crystals he had accumulated and let Chimey raise its grade. After its grade was raised, the Fantasy 3 exclusive skill, Radiant Body, would be Lin Yuan's most powerful single target means. Therefore, Lin Yuan was now using the flower brocade pearls as a scythe. He would treat those mid-grade strange flames as leeks. He would use the scythe to cut these leeks one by one. He would collect the scattered leeks in the market into his pocket for the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and Chimey to use. Lin Yuan's Purchase with No Loss store once again publicly displayed 10 flower brocade pearls. It was equivalent to sending a message to the outside world. The message was, "I have plenty of flower brocade pearls." Lin Yuan had not checked any faction's information before contacting any faction. It was because he wanted to wait for a suitable opportunity. And after this blind trade, the time was obviously ripe. Based on the speed at which Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss store was selling the flower brocade pearls, Lin Yuan would soon accumulate a large number of flower brocade pearls. Lin Yuan did not intend to sell the accumulated flower brocade pearls through blind trading. Lin Yuan planned to bundle these flower brocade pearls with 10 flower brocade pearls as a unit, to exchange for resources that were a level higher than the flower brocade pearls with factions and creation masters that urgently needed them. It would be unsuitable for those factions and creation masters to exchange with him. However, if he could obtain a large number of flower brocade pearls in one go, it would save him a lot of time and effort. There would still be plenty of factions and creation masters willing to trade. After dealing with the matters in his purchase with no loss store, Jiang Fei had already left. He went to look for the merchant who sold the flesh of dimensional life forms and phase that Zhou Jiesin had recommended to him a few months ago. Lin Yuan arrived at the destination. He saw a boorish man sitting in front of the shop with a frown on his face, flipping through the account books. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan greeted him. "Brother Feng, why are you so worried?" When the boorish big brother Feng raised his head and saw Lin Yuan, he felt as though he had a vague impression of this youth. When Lin Yuan saw that the boorish big brother Feng didn't recognize him, he gave a hint. "Brother Feng, big sister Zhou Jiesin recommended me." The boorish big brother Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of understanding. He closed the account book and stood up. "I remember now. Isn't it going to be the new year soon? Recently, the phase flesh has been selling well and earning a lot of money. But the dimensional lifeform's flesh is all here and can't be sold at a lower price." Lin Yuan wanted to say a few words of comfort, but just as he was about to say them, he held them back. Lin Yuan really had no way to comfort him. It was going to be the active period of the dimensional rifts that happen once every 10 years. At that time, there would definitely be a large number of dimensional lifeforms' flesh flowing into the market. Therefore, if the dimensional lifeforms' flesh in Big Brother Feng's hands could not be sold before the new year, it would be even harder to sell after the new year. Lin Yuan immediately stated his purpose for coming here. "Brother Feng, I want to buy some dimensional lifeforms' flesh." Upon hearing that, the boorish big brother Feng's expression obviously improved. He asked, "What kind of dimensional lifeform's flesh do you want and what grade?" "It's the end of the year. I'll sell it to you at a reduced price. I'll give you a 30% discount on the flesh of insect dimensional creatures. I'll give you a 50% discount on the flesh of swamp dimensional creatures. I'll give you a 40% discount on the flesh of underground dimensional creatures. I'll give you a 30% discount on the flesh of abyss dimensional creatures. How's the price?" Lin Yuan didn't expect Big Brother Feng to give him such a low price. However, Lin Yuan didn't wish to buy the flesh of these dimensional life forms. "Brother Feng, I want the flesh and blood of the water world dimensional life forms." Lin Yuan had just finished speaking when he suddenly felt the boorish Big Brother Feng's expression turn stern. "Kid, you're messing with me, right?" Lin Yuan did not understand why this boorish man, Big Brother Feng, would say such a thing. Lin Yuan could not help but mutter in his heart. "Play you? How should I play you? What's so fun about you? I'm only here to buy dimensional creature flesh. Stay up all night long, sob sob sob. Please order all of them. Reward me, my recent grades have dropped by half. Sob sob sob, buttons are so pitiful." End of chapter. Chapter 376. The boorish Big Brother Feng was already worried about the upcoming active period of the dimensional rift. When he thought of how he still had a large amount of dimensional creature flesh that he hadn't sold, the boorish Brother Feng couldn't even eat. When Lin Yuan said that he wanted to buy dimensional lifeforms' flesh, Big Brother Feng was very happy. The boorish Big Brother Feng even gave Lin Yuan a discount on the dimensional lifeforms' flesh and sold them at the base price. It could even be said that the flesh and blood of insect dimensional creatures were at a 30% discount. Brother Feng was selling them at a loss. However, Brother Feng didn't expect this. Lin Yuan actually wanted the water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh. Was this something that people would buy? Or rather, how could anyone want to buy the flesh of a water world dimensional creature? When the boorish Big Brother Feng saw that Lin Yuan was confused, His aggrieved expression didn't seem to be fake. He said patiently, "Have you seen the flesh and blood of water world dimensional creatures?" Lin Yuan was still wondering why Big Brother Feng had asked him to play with him. Upon hearing Big Brother Feng's question, Lin Yuan immediately answered, "Of course I've seen the flesh and blood of water world dimensional creatures." When Big Brother Feng heard Lin Yuan's words, he immediately replied in a bad mood. "You've seen the flesh of water world dimensional creatures, so you should know the taste of their flesh. Can that kind of thing be taken out and sold? Do you want me to kill everyone with my stench?" Lin Yuan touched the back of his head. He recalled that the flesh of the water world dimensional life forms was in the diamond face storage box. He had never taken out the flesh of the water world dimensional life forms to check. The water world dimensional creatures were not small in size. In particular, most of the platinum water world life forms in the diamond face storage box were more than 8 meters long. The largest platinum water world dimensional creature was more than 25 meters long. It was inconvenient for him to take out such a big thing. However, as for the smell that Brother Feng mentioned, the flesh and blood of dimensional creatures did not smell good. The flesh and blood of the alien insect dimensional life forms carried a strong sour smell. The flesh and blood of the abyss dimensional creatures carried a strong smell of sulfur. However, even if the flesh and blood of a water world dimensional creature smells bad, it shouldn't be enough to kill the people around him, right? After listening to Big Brother Feng's words, Lin Yuan knew that it would be impossible for him to buy the water world dimensional life form's flesh on StarWeb. The flesh of dimensional creatures was useless to begin with, so there had always been very few channels to sell it. For someone like Brother Feng, who had a channel to import dimensional life forms' flesh and blood, it could be said that he knew very well if there was any stock of water world dimensional life forms' flesh and blood. Brother Feng's current reaction meant that there was no sale of the flesh and blood of water world dimensional creatures in his entire channel. It seemed that it would be difficult for him to find a place that would sell water world dimensional life forms' flesh. However, he did not understand why anyone would be willing to buy the water world dimensional life form's flesh. So he asked, "Big Brother Feng, why would anyone be willing to buy the water world dimensional life form's flesh?" "Brother Feng, why doesn't anyone buy the flesh of the water world dimensional creatures?" When Big Brother Feng heard Lin Yuan's question, he recalled that Lin Yuan had bought dimensional life forms' flesh from him before. So he wrinkled his nose and said, "Yes. The first point is that the flesh and blood of the water world dimensional life forms are highly toxic. Although the bodies of the water world dimensional life forms contain nutrients that are beneficial to water-type phase, the water world dimensional life forms aren't as powerful as water phase. However, the poison contained in the water world dimensional life forms will cause a large amount of stinky mucus to appear on the surface of spirit objects that consume the flesh and blood of water dimensional life forms. Then, the surface of the Fae wrapped in mucus will constantly fester. That's why only a fool would want to buy the flesh of a water world dimensional creature. Of course, this is only the first point. The second point is that if the flesh of the water world dimensional life forms is not immediately placed in the Fae storage box, it will be destroyed. After leaving the seawater and being exposed to the air for a few minutes, it will immediately rot. After decaying, the water world dimensional creature will immediately change from an unbearable stench to a rotten stench. I don't think anyone can endure that smell." As he spoke, Brother Feng wrinkled his nose with lingering fear. He expressed that he didn't want to recall that stench anymore. At this moment, Brother Feng suddenly had some doubts. Why did the cheerful youth in front of him want to buy the flesh of a water world dimensional creature for no reason? "Kid, what's the use of buying the water world dimensional creature's flesh? I have plenty of water-type Fae flesh here. If you need it, I can give you a 10% discount." The boorish Big Brother Feng had a very good impression of Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan's body emitted a faint aura of natural sunlight. It was easy for people to have a good impression of him after interacting with him. Lin Yuan replied awkwardly after hearing Big Brother Feng's words. "I'm buying the water world dimensional life form's flesh to feed Faes." After listening to Big Brother Feng's explanation, Lin Yuan could not help but marvel at Red Thorn's mouth of relinquished powerful digestive function. Red Thorn could easily digest the poisonous substances that other fays couldn't. Not only that, but it could also give him a beneficial mutation. However, after saying that, Lin Yuan saw Big Brother Feng's face turn red, and it was obvious that he was about to go berserk. Lin Yuan said hurriedly, "Brother Feng, do you have any gold-fringed fish? I would like to buy some." Lin Yuan was really afraid that he would infuriate Big Brother Feng to the point of developing cerebral thrombosis, high blood pressure, gastric ulcers, diabetes, liver cirrhosis, and myocardial infarction. No matter what, Zhou Jiesin was the one who introduced Brother Feng to her. It would be awkward if Zhou Jiesin found out that she was so angry that she had complications. It just so happened that Endless Summer and the mother of Bloodbath had recently taken a liking to gold ingredient, the golden-edged fringed fish. Therefore, Lin Yuan thought of buying some from Big Brother Feng. Brother Feng was so angry that he wanted to curse. Previously, when Big Brother Feng saw Lin Yuan's innocent expression, he felt that he might have wronged Lin Yuan. But now, he actually heard that Lin Yuan wanted to buy the Waterworld dimensional lifeform's flesh to feed his fae. Brother Feng was sure that the young man in front of him, whom he had a good impression of, was playing with him. Moreover, he wanted to play with her ruthlessly. How could a sane person think of buying Waterworld dimensional lifeform's flesh to feed fays? Wouldn't it be better to just feed it to him? However, before Big Brother Feng could get angry, he heard that Lin Yuan wanted to buy the gold ingredient, the golden-edged fringed fish. Big Brother Feng's eyes lit up. Big Brother Feng might be selling fays' flesh and dimensional lifeforms' flesh here, but he wasn't selling them at all. There weren't many gold fays' flesh that could be sold in a day. Furthermore, the gold ingredient, the golden-edged fringed fish, weighed less than 500 grams and was considered an expensive ingredient. If he could sell a few, he would definitely be able to make a small profit. Big Brother Feng had planned to close the stall at this time, but he didn't expect to receive a big order before closing the stall. First update, end of this chapter. Chapter 377. Big Brother Feng said forthrightly to Lin Yuan, "Come, follow me to the storeroom to take a look. I happen to have a few golden-edged skirt fish here. These are all prepared for those big restaurants. If you like any of them, you can pick them first." Speaking up to this point, Brother Feng suddenly gritted his teeth. "Kid, have you heard of the Radiance 100 Sequences Zhao Xiaochun, who has the title of anorexia?" Lin Yuan felt that Big Brother Feng's thoughts were too jumpy. Why did the topic suddenly jump to Zhao Xiaochun? Lin Yuan wasn't very familiar with Zhao Xiaochun. However, Lin Yuan had indeed met Zhao Xiaochun with both of his identities, so he asked, "Why? Brother Feng, do you like Zhao Xiaochun?" When Brother Feng thought of Zhao Xiaochun, he gritted his teeth in hatred. Now that Lin Yuan had asked if she liked Zhao Xiaochun, she felt a little embarrassed. He lost control of his emotions and slapped his thighs with his hands. What the hell is Zhao Xiaochun's stomach made of? She can eat so much. My high-grade ingredients are mainly sold in the capital, but most of the restaurants in the capital have been eaten up by Zhao Xiaochun. I really don't know why this bottomless pit of gluttony is called anorexia. It's obvious that the previous Critical Needle girl is more realistic. I've watched Zhao Xiaochun's matches several times. I really can't see how such a skinny little girl could bankrupt so many restaurants. At the mention of Zhao Xiaochun, the boorish man Brother Feng became a chatterbox. Lin Yuan did not know how to comfort Big Brother Feng. It was just like how Lin Yuan did not know how to comfort Shirsu when he was in the controlled Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift. Compared to Brother Feng, Shirsu was obviously in a worse state. After thinking for a while, Lin Yuan said, "That's right. Zhao Xiaochun's nickname is anorexia. Maybe anorexia means to eliminate all food, so there's no food." Lin Yuan's words made Big Brother Feng choke. Before he could even breathe, Brother Feng was choked to the point of burping. Brother Feng told himself in his heart, "If I don't get angry when others get angry, no one will be able to replace me when I get angry, until I get sick." After all, he still had a store to run. Brother Feng thought to himself that he must quickly sell the golden-edged fringed fish to this kid. Then, he would make this kid scram immediately. Why does this brat's words sound even more infuriating than Zhao Xiaochun's? Lin Yuan followed Big Brother Feng to the storeroom, where the rare ingredients were stored. Lin Yuan realized that Big Brother Feng really had a lot of good stuff. Although there weren't any precious platinum ingredients, there were quite a few gold ingredients. When Lin Yuan saw that these gold ingredients were of good quality, he made up his mind to buy more. The manor had endless summer, and the mother of bloodbath, the two big eaters. Every day, Lu Jie went out to buy a lot of groceries. Why not buy a lot from Brother Feng and store them in the kitchen? In any case, the white jade snow orchid was placed on the kitchen cabinet, and the ingredients could be stored as long as they wanted. There were even some ingredients that were placed in the kitchen with the bronze/epic white jade snow orchid, which made the ingredients fresher than when they were first bought. Therefore, Lin Yuan activated the buy mode from Big Brother Feng. As long as someone in the mansion liked to eat Big Brother Feng's gold ingredients, Lin Yuan would buy some of them. Lin Yuan let go of his buy. This made Big Brother Feng extremely happy. Brother Feng, who was overwhelmed with grief and joy, felt a little dizzy and painful in his head. Lin Yuan had bought a large batch of gold ingredients this time, almost catching up with the amount that his store could sell in more than a month. After picking, Lin Yuan settled the bill with Big Brother Feng. He didn't expect to spend 700,000 Radiance dollars to buy this batch of gold ingredients. Lin Yuan felt that Radiance dollars were becoming more and more worthless. Why were they like Federation dollars? After settling the bill, Lin Yuan said to Big Brother Feng, "Brother Feng, if I need more ingredients in the future, I will come back to buy them from you." When Lin Yuan had bought that large batch of gold ingredients, the smile on Big Brother Feng's face had not withered. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the smile on her face became even more exaggerated. Brother Feng's face looked fierce. Now that he was overjoyed, he looked like an anglerfish baring its teeth. "All right, good. If you need anything, just call me. I promise to serve you well. It has always been a 10% discount." After Lin Yuan left, Big Brother Feng could not help but say, "This kid is really nice. It's a pity that he's not a mute." Lin Yuan didn't know that Big Brother Feng had labeled him as a pity that he had a mouth. Lin Yuan hadn't completed his purpose of coming to Star Web. He didn't buy the gold water world dimensional lifeform's flesh at all. He even learned a piece of bad news, which was that the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh could not be sold. After leaving Star Web, Lin Yuan looked at his phone. Although it was late at night, Lin Yuan found that Gao Feng had just updated his friend's circle after swiping his phone. "Gao Feng, I'm in the wind. I'm in the waves. There are poems in the waves at night. I'm also a poem's little secret." Lin Yuan didn't expect Gao Feng to be a literary youth. This friend's circle was too pretentious. Since Lin Yuan knew that Gao Feng was not asleep, he simply called him. Gao Feng's Gao family had been developing marine resources recently, so he should know where to get the gold water world dimensional lifeform's flesh. The phone rang for less than 10 seconds before Gao Feng picked it up. Lin Yuan heard the obvious sound of waves on Gao Feng's phone. It was obvious that Gao Feng should be listening to the waves at the seaside. Lin Yuan had always thought that Gao Feng had posted this friend circle because he was pretentious. He didn't expect Gao Feng to really be listening to the sea at the seaside. It was winter, and the wind in Misty Wind City was strong. Listening to the sea at the seaside was too thoughtful. Before Lin Yuan could speak, Gao Feng's pretentious and surprised voice came from the other end of the phone. "Brother, are you calling me at this time because you miss me? Hee." Lin Yuan could hear the fatigue in Gao Feng's voice through the phone. Before Lin Yuan could speak, Gao Feng said, "Brother, I'm at the seaside. Brother, I am by the sea. Listen to the sound of the sea." Then, Lin Yuan felt as though Gao Feng had rushed the phone's microphone into the sea. The sound of the waves was not clear to Lin Yuan. However, the sound of the sea breeze blew up the phone's microphone. Lin Yuan was a little confused. The world of this literary youth was simply too difficult to understand. However, Lin Yuan had already regarded Gao Feng as his friend. Hearing the fatigue in Gao Feng's voice, Lin Yuan didn't talk about his own matters first. Instead, he asked Gao Feng, "What happened recently? You made yourself so tired." Second update, seeking recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 378. Gao Feng had wanted to go to the seaside because he was in a bad mood. Otherwise, it would have been better to stay at home during the winter. Why would he come out to face the knife-like sea breeze in early winter? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Gao Feng's heart warmed. At the same time, he was a little surprised. His father had just told him not to go out and be crazy for too long before he left. However, he did not hear the exhaustion in his voice at all. But now, Lin Yuan could hear the exhaustion in his voice through the phone. Gao Feng knew that no matter how meticulous Lin Yuan was, he could hear the exhaustion in his voice. However, if Lin Yuan did not regard him as a friend, he would definitely not ask what he had encountered. Gao Feng sighed and said, "Brother, you don't know that those Class 5 spirit craftsmen are too difficult to invite. Brother, you don't know how difficult it is to invite those Class 5 spirit craftsmen. I'm afraid of wasting those 4 pieces of completely jade-textured supreme-grade green elm." After Gao Feng finished speaking, he thought that he would use the Gao family's connections to invite a Class 5 spirit craftsman. During this time, Gao Feng had been thinking about giving the old master a gift. Therefore, he had not used the Gao family's connections. Instead, he had been using the connections he had accumulated to plan this matter. However, Gao Feng now found that without the Gao family's connections, he could not invite a Class 5 spirit craftsman with his own strength. Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard Gao Feng's words. Lin Yuan thought it was something else, but it turned out that it was because of the 4 completely jade-textured green elm boards. It had been a month since Lin Yuan had traded the completely jade-textured green elm boards with Gao Feng. It had been a month, but Gao Feng had not started to use these 4 completely jade-textured green elm boards to make objects. Hu Quan was now a Class 5 spirit craftsman, and could definitely help Gao Feng. So Lin Yuan replied. Lin Yuan said, "If you can't find a Class 5 spirit craftsman to help, I have one here. If you need, send me the blueprints of the objects you want to make, and the 4 completely jade-textured green elm boards." As soon as Gao Feng heard Lin Yuan's words, he immediately felt the annoyance in his heart disappear. Gao Feng suddenly realized that the sea breeze in early winter was too cold. He was just a weak peer support. Why did he have to be trampled by the sea breeze here? At the same time, Lin Yuan's weight in Gao Feng's heart became even heavier. Even if Gao Feng's other friends could find Class 5 spirit craftsmen, they would never take the initiative to help. This was because no one was willing to owe a Class 5 spirit craftsman a favor for someone else. "Brother, thank you so much. I've already drawn the blueprint. I'll mail it to you when I get home." Hearing that Gao Feng was fine, Lin Yuan's voice sounded relaxed. He directly stated the purpose of his call. "Gao Feng, do you know where to get the flesh of a gold water world dimensional creature?" Gao Feng was immediately surprised and asked, "What's going on? Brother, why do you want that thing? That thing stinks and it's poisonous. No one would put it away." Some time ago, a Class 2 water world dimensional rift opened up in the coastal waters controlled by our Gao clan. The water world dimensional creatures that surged out from inside immediately turned into biochemical weapons after they were killed. It stinks. After the people who went to deal with the Class 2 water world dimensional rift came back, they didn't eat properly for a week. The flesh and blood of those water world dimensional creatures were thrown into the bottom of the sea after they were killed. When Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's words, he had an idea. From the looks of it, it wasn't impossible to obtain the flesh of the water world dimensional life forms. After some time, it would be the active period for dimensional rifts. By then, not only would the dimensional rifts on land become unstable, but the chances of them opening up would also be higher. It was the same for the water world dimensional rift in the sea. The Gao family had been developing coastal resources and had already taken control of a lot of coastal waters. In that case, as long as Gao Feng waited for the dimensional rift to erupt, he would pay attention to the water world dimensional rift in the coastal waters. When the time came, he would definitely be able to obtain the flesh of a gold water world dimensional creature for Red Thorn to devour. It helped the petals of Red Thorn's 12 large flowers undergo a gill-like mutation. It allowed Red Thorn's ability to breathe underwater to become stronger. Gaofeng, when the dimensional rift is active, can you help me get some gold water world dimensional lifeforms flesh? When Gaofeng heard this, he immediately expressed that there was no problem. Gaofeng said after thinking for a while, "Brother, if I go now, I should be able to get the flesh of a bronze water world dimensional lifeform. Do you think it's useful?" When Lin Yuan heard Gaofeng's words, he pondered for a while. Red Thorn was now a silver/fantasy breed fae. Even if the flesh of a bronze water world dimensional lifeform was useful, the effect was really too weak. The mutation effect on Red Thorn could be said to be negligible. There was no need for Gaofeng to expend effort to find the flesh of a bronze water world dimensional lifeform. The flesh of a water world dimensional lifeform below gold is of no use to me. I need the flesh of a gold or platinum water world dimensional lifeform. In Lin Yuan's opinion, although the flesh of a platinum water world dimensional lifeform could not be eaten yet, there was no harm in storing more. After hanging up the phone, Lin Yuan was a little curious. Why did the boorish man Big Brother Feng and Gaofeng have such lingering fears about the flesh of a water world dimensional lifeform? Lin Yuan's curiosity was uncontrollable. Then, Lin Yuan came to the open space outside the main mansion and summoned the smallest platinum water world dimensional lifeform from the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box. This smallest platinum water world dimensional lifeform was more than 8 meters long. It looked like a strange fish. This strange fish's body was covered with a layer of anemone-like tentacles. The color of these tentacles looked very bright. However, after careful observation, one could see that these tentacles were hidden with pitch-black stingers, which were obviously highly toxic. Based on body structure alone, most of these water world dimensional lifeforms were tentacle-type dimensional lifeforms. Obviously, their combat ability should not be weak. As soon as Lin Yuan summoned the platinum water world dimensional lifeform with strange tentacles, he almost fainted from the smell. Since Lin Yuan was standing outside against the wind, he did not wait for this 8-meter-long strange tentacle fish to land on the ground. Lin Yuan smelled something he had never smelled in his life. A pungent fishy smell. Lin Yuan did not know how to describe this smell. It was like putting the internal organs of dozens of sea fish in a jar of sauce. It was covered with a layer of plastic, and then exposed to the sun for 10 days. When the innards of the dozen or so fishes turned green, they were rolled into a pancake and eaten. That was probably how it tasted. Of course, Lin Yuan's description might not be accurate. Perhaps the smell of the green internal organs of the dozens of fish phase was not as pungent as the smell of this water world dimensional lifeform's flesh and blood. Lin Yuan hurriedly took advantage of the fact that the platinum water world dimensional lifeform had yet to land on the ground. Then, he stored this water world dimensional lifeform back into the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box again. He had heard from Big Brother Feng that this platinum water world dimensional lifeform would easily decay when exposed to air. He didn't want to smell the putrid stench of this platinum dimensional lifeform after it decayed. Even after he stored this platinum water world dimensional lifeform back into the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box, Lin Yuan's abdomen was still churning. Lin Yuan looked at the large pile of smelly mucus on this open space, and the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch wildly. Lin Yuan hurriedly returned to the mansion, took out the cleaning tools, and dealt with the platinum water world dimensional lifeform. Even though it did not fall to the ground, a lot of mucus still dripped from the surface of its body. When dealing with this mucus, if Lin Yuan did not have good endurance, he would have vomited it out. After spending 3 hours, Lin Yuan finally tidied up the courtyard in the early winter's cold wind. However, the stench would probably have to wait until tomorrow morning before it would dissipate completely. At that moment, the ostrich logistics courier arrived outside the mansion. The courier smelled the smell coming from the mansion and could not help but guess. Did the people in this manor just take a dump in the yard? Make up for yesterday's third update, seeking recommendation votes. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.